Years ago, H.G. Wells visualized roads such as these in his science fiction fantasies. And today they're a reality.
You're listening to The Afternoon Commute with John Adams and Chris Kendall.
Welcome to The Afternoon Commute. Today is September 1st, 2015. If you'd like to hear previous episodes of The Afternoon Commute, you can go to hoaxbusterscall.com, and you'll find those posted up there alongside episodes of Chris's Monday Night Call, the original Hoaxbusters Call. Also posted up there are various articles and phone calls that Chris made over the years. You can also see videos, like the video he just posted this past week, which is entitled, what's this one called? What's that one called, Chris?
The shooting epidemic, we can't stop laughing.
Can't stop laughing. And this goes over the trend that seems to run through all of these alleged events where people can't keep from chuckling and laughing and snickering. It's very strange. I say that facetiously. So for any and all things Hoaxbusters, go check it out at hoaxbusterscall.com, and we welcome you if you are new to the listening audience. Our guest today is no stranger to the Afternoon Commute, as I said last time, and his name is Jay Dyer, and he's from jaysanalysis.com, where you can find all sorts of different types of analysis, from film to geopolitics to philosophy and literature. I definitely recommend it. It is a daily stop of mine when I'm looking for news and information. And I really do appreciate his work, and so make sure you go check that out. And I believe Jay has a radio show he's going to be hosting in October. But let's ask Jay about that. Jay, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Glad to be back, guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Yes.
Always a pleasure.
Glad to have you. Tell us real quick about your radio show coming up.
Well, we're looking at October. Like I said, Natural News, Mike Adams is starting a kind of indie talk radio 24/7 setup where we have complete creative control. So we're actually allowed to, talk about whatever we want to, we're within the scheme of whatever our show is. So I'm going to be doing a show called Esoteric Hollywood, which will fit into my forthcoming first book, Esoteric Hollywood. So that's what we're looking at for that. And basically it's just going to be what you've seen so far at Jay's Analysis, maybe a little bit snazzier, some more film themed type stuff. Not every interview, of course, that I've done is film themed. I just had a interview with a buddy of mine who's an author, James Kelly. We're going through the cult series, and we're looking at different cults like Heaven's Gate, Scientology. This was actually his idea, so Tom Secker, we're not borrowing this from you or anything else. But he is writing a book on cults, so he suggested that we go through those. So if listeners are interested, they can check that out. But so yeah, that's what's going on with me. Oh, and real quick also, I've been invited to speak at the Secret Space Program Conference in Texas, in Austin. That'll be October 31st to November 1st. And before Hoaxbusters audience people go crazy on me, my presentation is not about aliens. My presentation is about predictive programming in Hollywood, which is really what I cover most of the time anyway. So that's what I'll be speaking about if anyone is in the Texas area and would like to come hear me speak on that.
All right, cool. Yeah, that sounds good. Well, I have an interesting thing I wanted to ask you guys about today. And I was talking with Tim over at Fakeologist the other week on a conference call, and I brought something up that I had totally forgotten about. And I went and I dug it out because I do have the book that corresponds with it. Are you gentlemen familiar with New World Coming, American Security in the 21st Century, Supporting Research and Analysis? compiled by the United States Commission on National Security 21st Century. It was written in 1999. It's also known as the Hart-Rudman Commission.
I have heard the Hart-Rudman Commission mentioned. I've not read this text, but I'm familiar with it, yes.
I have not heard of it.
Chris, you've heard of the Hart-Rudman Commission.
Yeah, I just can't draw it out of my memory right now.
Well, this
now, as real quick before you go, I just want to make sure this is Gary Hart, right? So this is tying into the Global Stabilization Police Plan and RAND Corporation, correct?
Absolutely. Gary Hart, and Warren Rudman, Senator Warren Rudman, they were heads of a commission in 1999, and it's basically, these guys are the, they're the front guys, and if you look at all of the notes from the, all the notes that they're coming from, it's all RAND Corporation, Foreign Affairs Magazine, Foreign Policy Administration, and so it's a bunch of think tanks, and it's an Alvin Toffler book, except it's it's a commission by the government, right? And they predict a lot of stuff in there. They even predict, terror attacks. And they seem to have a crystal ball of some sort pertaining to terror attacks that were, going to manifest themselves. How all of a sudden this big in the 90s, terror wasn't really that big of a deal. But all of a sudden, in this commission, what they do is they point out that terrorism is all of a sudden going to become a really big deal.
Absolutely.
And,
because it's an engineered program of destabilization, strategy of tension that is not just a foreign policy, but the policy domestically as well.
Right, and there's another article from Foreign Affairs that I had a copy of. Unfortunately, I let someone borrow it.
Hey, John?
Yeah.
Oh, I think you're cutting out. You're breaking up.
I am? Can you hear me?
I hear you now.
Okay. There was an article in Foreign Affairs magazine from 1991. It was called Security in the New World Order, I think it is. And it's written by Stansfield Turner. He's a former CIA head. And that particular article, he talks about how communism is now out, terrorism is now in.
Yep.
And I remember reading that article and going, man, this article, that's what he's saying here. He is saying that out with the old, in with the new in this particular article. I think it's called Strategy for a New World Order. That's what his article is called, by Stansfield Turner from.
I've read that. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. And before I'd read that, I remember thinking, when I was getting hip to a lot of this stuff, I remember thinking, man, if the big global Cold War thing was such a real threat, it's not like just because a wall came down that there would suddenly be no more communists in the world, right? But the establishment perspective completely shifted away from caring at all about that into the war on terror. So that alone lets you know that it was essentially a bogus controlled opposition the whole time.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, they would have cared about, the sleeper agents and all this stuff, but that's just completely forgotten.
Yeah. And another thing too is that you read, I'm sure because you're hip. I was bringing a lot of this up because I like those articles that you post up there about from about the Cold War and your buddy Mark Hackard.
Yeah.
And a lot of that Cold War spy stuff's real interesting. And one of the books is New Lies for Old by Anatoly Golitsyn, is that?
Yes. Mark translated a Russian KGB guy's piece from the Russian into English, debunking that, which was an interesting perspective because that lends credence to the idea that when you have any kind of a leak like that, it's a leak on purpose.
Sure.
I mean, think about the political capital you have when you have this apparent defector, and you're going to leak this great story. Well, obviously, the CIA is only going to leak some version or construct of this that fits their agenda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but another interesting aspect of that book too is, like you said, it's a contrived leak, but he leaks that the Berlin Wall is going to come down in that book.
Yes, right.
Like he said, and so yeah, we know that to be completely and totally contrived. But I thought this was an interesting thing here. It's pretty funny. I wanted to read this from New World Coming. In this regard, oh wait, here is it. This is extremely important for the long run. All major technological economic revolutions have tended to empower some groups and diminish others. As we move even deeper into a time of knowledge-based power, those nations, societies, and groups that excel at education and human capital generally will find themselves with daunting relative advantages over those that do not. This is already obvious in some respects, though the post-war examples of Hong Kong, Singapore, and Israel, small and natural resource-poor places that have nevertheless been able to generate considerable wealth and relative power. This is why education, as well as social capital and cohesion, will be increasingly important components of national power in the future. Right? So education, social capital, and cohesion will be important components of national power in the future. In this regard, the Internet may play a powerful role. On the one hand, the Internet has considerable potential to spur greater literacy in much of the world and to bring knowledge to millions who might otherwise have no opportunity to learn. That is all good, but a global Internet culture may also produce far more half-educated people. The proverb that a little knowledge can be a dangerous thing may be trite, but that does not make it false. When one recalls that some of the most dangerous leaders of the followers in the 20th century have been half-educated men, i.e. Stalin, Hitler, Mao, and Pol Pot, come readily to mind, the possibility begins to take on a worrisome dimension. This is a potential problem, not just at the level of national leadership, but at the level far deeper in society. The Internet is already full of information, but not necessarily of knowledge, and it is utterly unfiltered. For those who lack a solid basic educational grounding, it is difficult to distinguish accurate from false information, serious ideas from half-baked ones, practical proposals from those both dangerous and fanciful. After all, any person, even a child, can use the Internet to visit with hate groups or be unwittingly influenced by many sundry forms of unhealthy or just unusual propaganda from any of the four corners of the earth. It is easy to get the Aryan Nation website up on a computer as it is to load Amazon.com. Big ideas hatched anywhere on Earth may rush around the world far more quickly than ever before, both good and not so good. Big ideas. That's what it says. It says it in quotation marks. Remember the big idea, George Bush? The potential for the growth of an international know-nothing populism can be ruled out just because the web will also facilitate coordination among groups lobbying for peace and human rights. Or can it be assumed that essentially anti-modern forces will abjure using the Internet? In some Muslim societies, religious fundamentalists are often the first to seize upon modern techniques of communication to spread their messages. The quasi-religious martial arts societies of China, though mystical and anti-modern at heart, may do so as well if their leaders argue that they need to use technology in order to humanize technology. Okay? So all of that rhetoric is like stuff that is totally current. Right? And if you read this book, you'll find all of the memes that we have seen over the years. That literally is one of many playbooks for memes and themes that they throw around. And so, you know, the idea, I mean, obviously I don't even think ISIS exists, at least in the form that people think it does.
No, I agree. Yeah, I've got pieces on that, right.
Yeah, and you know, same thing when Al-Qaeda was around, which that just magically disappeared. It's pretty hilarious that we actually saw the disappearance of Al-Qaeda. And
yeah, these things are they're like Coke, and then remember when they had New Coke? Remember that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, yeah, Chris is 10 years older than you and I, so he remembers New Coke as a teenager.
Yeah. I've never gotten over getting rid of New Coke. That was my favorite.
But see, here's the thing.
It's probably no different.
Here's the thing. Okay, what they talk about in there is something that was planned out for a long time. And if you go over that book with a fine-tooth comb, which I'm starting to do again, but I read it, you know, years ago, and you read a lot of books just like that, it seems that they have a lot of these things kind of planned out, like specifically, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm wondering what of it is, and I'm asking your guys' opinion, and then you guys can dialogue on this while I stay quiet for a minute. But I want to know what are the new like I wonder what the new things are, and I wonder what the things are that they've got in the closet ready to bust out at the right time. You know what I'm saying? Because when you read something like that and you hear the stuff about, you know, all that they're talking about in there, and I mean, they go into great detail about the way internet affects group psychology and all sorts of stuff. It appears that they have a lot of this stuff planned out ahead of time. I don't know which it is, though. So maybe these mass shootings have been thought about 30 years in advance as well.
Sure. I would think so. Well, they would look, I would guess, speculate here, they would look at events like Bud Dyer shooting himself on live TV. How did people react to that? Let's collect all the papers that academics wrote on Bud Dyer and the resulting effects, and then, you know, work with that idea. What about the Kent State shooting? So you've got these older precedents for this kind of stuff. As I mentioned in my Sunday Wire interview Sunday with Patrick, we were going over different films that had similar ideas to this ridiculous Virginia Tech shooting, and what we see is scripting. I mean, there's just no other way to explain it other than that they're scripted ahead of time. And I think you're absolutely right that the internet is the new way to experiment and put out and script and try different ways of doing it, like these different hashtag revolutions, hashtag memes, social justice warriors, Black Lives Matter, Roanoke Strong, Arab Spring, if we remember the Arab Spring, that was supposedly aided by Google. So I won't keep rambling on that point because I think we're probably on the same page there. But I do have a couple pieces that treat this. One is Controlled Order Out of Chaos Comes Home that I wrote about a year ago, and that cites the Hart Rudman that you're talking about. And then I wrote a more recent piece called ISIS, Feminists, and Thugs, Dupes of the Foundations and Think Tanks. And I look at how the domestic strategies of these Soros-type groups, Black Lives Matter, blah, 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 as well as feminism, they model strategies of foreign covert psyops and media manipulation, Radio America, all that kind of stuff, Radio Free Europe, blah, blah, blah. It's all the same strategies. And what that would suggest is that a higher level, meta level scripting that you're talking about, not just different ideas at work, different fake revolutions, fake shootings, but phases of these things, like you're talking about. So I kind of like some of Dave McGowan's ideas of, transitioning out of the era of the serial killer domestically into the era of the mass shooter. I think there's an insight there in that. So I wonder if maybe this is just me speculating again. Maybe the next phase will be, cyber killings. You'll have some form of not just cyber terror, quote unquote, but what I'm saying is that as everything moves into the cyber realm, away from traditional TV and whatnot, it's much easier to manipulate, I think. And that's what if we look at something like the Virginia shooting, it's the first one now that's supposed to be live. So we've upgraded from these past shootings where we just hear about it and there's, stock footage of crime scene people and cops milling about on the news. We've upgraded now to what's supposedly a live shooting event, which is completely ridiculous. So everything's moving into this direct one-way medium, like Chris talked about in terms of Darwinism. It's a direct one-way medium of the internet will project to you a complete overlay of everything that you believe and traditionally thought, and I think practically experienced on a day-to-day basis. When you go out to the grocery, the mall, the movie theater, you're not getting shot up all the time. There aren't gunfights like some wild OK Corral saloon or something. Like, it's not like everybody's out there in the Wild West, and that's probably not even true, right? So, but if you can just give everybody the overlay and thought of, constant fear, just like the nuke threat, as we talked about the Cold War. Oh, you're going to get nuked any minute. Be ready to roll under your desk at any point. Just drop, stop, drop, roll under the desk, and watch out for the nuclear blast that's going to that's going to hit everything but your desk. But it's just a constant fear. It's constant agitation. Agitprop is another good thing to look at. That's the test tube of the Soviets really perfected agitprop. And I think that's a lot of what we're seeing, especially with all these race riots, that Virginia's included, Charleston, Black Lives Matter, Ferguson, Baltimore. This is agitprop, right? Something perfected by the Bolsheviks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's the definition of agitprop? I forget. It's something propaganda.
Agitation propaganda.
Agitation propaganda, so right, yeah.
Propaganda that's kind of Saul Alinsky type stuff where it's all purely reactionary, emotional based. It's posters of, I'm thinking of Soviet examples. The Soviets would have just put up these posters of how everybody rich was raping you, right? Yeah. And if you're the working guy, you might have been happy as a working guy, but now you're agitated into thinking that if you don the party's approach and you overthrow anybody with, $200 more than you, then, then will come the utopia. So just completely divorced from any reason, any sensible thought. It's not even pragmatic. It's just like a pure emotional, reaction is all it is.
Yeah, we talked about, we went into that before with the, what's the guy's name? Shepard Fairey poster, the Obama poster, and
oh yes,
he's drawing from that same exact template. The constructivism is like the bold fonts, the bold lines, the really stark imagery, and just a kind of agitation propaganda to elicit a visceral response just on its face, And we went into that with that. Yeah. The whole, really, the Obama campaign was really bizarre, and it was kind of this. It was almost like a parody of a political campaign,
exactly.
Right? Because it was so over the top with just the vacuous sloganeering and the agitprop imagery and all that stuff, and then directly dialed in toward the youth culture, and just pretty amazing.
Now, Chris, I'm going to read you this. Let me read this real quick. I want you guys to think about the Virginia shootings, or the Virginia shooting, or any of the other mass shootings. Think about Hollywood and theater, and think about Obama and political campaigns. And listen to this. The term agitprop gave rise to agitprop theater, a highly politicized leftist theater originating in the 1920s in Europe that spread to America. The plays of Bertolt Brecht became a notable example. Russian agitprop theater was noted for its cardboard characters of perfect virtue and complete evil, and its coarse ridicule. Gradually, the term agitprop came to describe any kind of highly politicized art. In the Western world, agitprop thus has a negative connotation. After the October Revolution of 1917, an agitprop train toured the country with the artists and actors performing simple plays and broadcasting propaganda. That is the Orange Revolution in 1917 Russia. So directly out of theater.
Right. Yeah, that's freaking phenomenal.
Are you reading that from Red Star over Hollywood?
No, I just went to Wikipedia. I was looking for an easy summation of how to define agitprop, and that's right there on the front.
Yeah, I know in that book Red Star over Hollywood, they talk about that. Could I read something real quick here?
Sure.
This is out of a book I've just about finished with. It's called The Real Madmen, The Renegades of Madison Avenue and the Golden Age of Advertising. Okay? In the meantime, Madison Avenue was making progress of its own in Washington, or at least with the political parties there. The interest in DDB, that's the ad agency, the interest in DDB that had been expressed by Kennedy had been passed on to Johnson, and the agency was hired by the Democratic National Committee for his 1964 re-election campaign. Sid Meier's and Stan Lee were assigned to the business. Lee, the copywriter, was delighted. I was very anti-Goldwater. I was also doing the advertising for a dog food at the time. Dog food, I had found out, doesn't excite me, but I could get very easily excited about beating Goldwater. Their commercial, Daisy, was electrifying. They showed an innocent little girl picking the petals off a daisy in a field of flowers, and she slowly counts them. A male voice echoing from a PA takes over. It becomes a sinister countdown. We slowly zoom into the girl's eyes as she looks up anxiously. As the countdown hits 0, the screen goes to a searing white, which we see an expanding nuclear fireball, and Johnson's voice says, "These are the stakes. To make a world in which all God's children can live, or go into the dark, we must either love each other or we must die." And another male voiceover says, "Vote for President Johnson on November 3rd. The stakes are too high to stay home."
Hey. Oh, that reminds me. I just thought of another great example of that. I saw an article a few months ago, and you'll probably find it somewhere if you Google it, but it was World War II, two propaganda posters about soldiers in foreign countries not having sex. Now, it sounds a little weird, but my guess is that this was probably a early mass propaganda test. But what they were doing was everywhere that soldiers were, even in foreign countries, on the bases in foreign countries, they would have all these really weird posters put up, and the art is really bizarre too. I don't know how to describe it. It looks like pulp fiction.
It wasn't that was on Messy Chic.
Yeah. But they had it was all agitprop. It was all 1 lines, 2 lines, and it was just pictures of soldiers being seduced by foreign women across the board, doesn't really matter. And it was all about how you don't need to have sex. And they would make all these outrageous claims like 1 million soldiers, came home with syphilis last year. Just outrageous numbers, right? That just can't be true. But they're actual World War II, propaganda posters about not having sex, period. So it's almost like they wanted the soldiers to not have any sex. Maybe they thought that would keep them in a state of anxiety or something, sexual tension, and there might have been some small concern over sexually transmitted diseases, but
then how come every 70s and 80s movies about the 40s, 30s and 50s, everybody's just having sex like crazy,
right.
and the Kinsey report was right. I'm kidding.
Yeah,
it was
well,
basically the Kinsey rewrote history of that previous generation, basically.
Yeah, you got to see these propaganda posters though, because they're a great specimen, a great example of just complete nonsense, complete bullshit, all targeted oddly at the troops themselves.
Yeah, there's you brought up that agitprop theater. I wanted to add something to that because we talked about this before a while back on one of the past calls. There was it is a traveling troupe of actors that traveled across America back in the 1800s, and they called it Chautauqua. You've heard of that, where you would go and watch these plays, and they would be reenactments of historical events or current events or something like that. That pre-television, pre-media, just sort of this and I get like this agitprop theater, maybe it's like a derivation of that or something, and I mean, just thinking about that in terms, because we speculated on this before. It's like, okay, what are these modern day mass shootings and all this stuff? Like, who are these people, and where do they come? Where do they come from, and stuff like that? And then, all these people out there are digging up information on it. It's like, oh yeah, this is like finding all these actors and stuff, and all these ties to actors guilds in Hollywood and stuff like that, and. I wonder. I mean, this is at this point is just kind of just speculation. But what potential ties could be to that long-standing tradition of that going on, and how long has this been going on? Is this, if we've been seeing just a continuation of that all these years, and stuff
Yes.
we thought all along was just news media stories were basically street theater or enactments that are carry on in the tradition of like the Chautauqua or these agitprop theater productions.
Absolutely. I think you're spot on. That's why the vaudeville troupe, if you look at Terry Gilliam's movie Dr. Parnassus and the Imaginarium, there is the whole beginning of that film is this actors troupe. And that's the one with Heath Ledger prior to his supposed death or whatever. Full of Masonic, occultic imagery and so forth. And then it goes off into dream worlds and pedophilia and all that. Now, what that suggests to me is just one representation of what is really going on. That if you remember in the film, the actors are all part of these foundations and these charity groups, and the charity groups are fake. The charity groups are all run by, we know now, obviously, basically all the big world scammers. So we think about
right.
Live Aid, Africa Aid, all those different goofy 80s songs, We Are the World and all that stuff, and Bono and all those people involved in that scam. And we find, come to find out, no surprise, like a few percentage of the billions in profit actually go to Africa. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So what that suggests to me is that it's because the artistically minded people generally are so right-brained that they're idealistic, they are intuitive types, and so when they go to art college, when they go to theater college, because I used to be a kind of a theater guy. I did a lot of theater in my younger days. Used to be on the drama team and all that. I used to do stand-up. And when you're around those kinds of people, that crowd of people, you realize that they're just idealistic leftists by nature. They don't even, they abhor critical thinking. So they're completely unwilling to think through any of the consequences of their beliefs. And I think that for a long time, smarter, more viperous, parasitical, psychopathic billionaire types have been well aware of this. This is why it's always been the elite families that are the patrons of the arts. They're not, I mean, yeah, on one level they have an appreciation of the arts, I'm sure, but they're patrons of the arts because the arts is how you control the masses. You don't control the masses mainly through, writing 2,000 word speeches and trying to rattle off facts. That's not, people don't care about that shit. That's boring.
Right.
What you control the masses through is music and theater, as Plato said long ago. So that's why the billionaires and the great families of the U.S., the Rockefellers, Morgans, blah, 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 Oppenheimers, they're all patrons of the arts, right?
Right.
So the idea, just once again, the idealistic dupes are used by people smarter than them to foster these flowery, heady, in the clouds ideals of socialism, utopianism, blah, blah, blah. And none of it's true, but they believe it because they believe in fantasy worlds.
Yeah, me and John discussed this multiple occasions about what motivates some of these people to participate in these fake events, and I propose that these people have ideologies, they have strongly held beliefs, and I think this is what you described it describes well the nature of their beliefs. They're not well thought through. They're not dependent on thinking anything through. They're kind of just emotional, reactive sets of beliefs that aren't substantiated by any kind of real world facts or anything. Don't have to be. And I guess that certain personality types are prone to that type of thinking, and then those people will eagerly participate in something that's fraudulent and fake because to them the truth and being truthful and honesty really has no value in and of itself. That can be disposed of in order to get their greater goal established, and which is their lofty ideal. That's in like you said, it's like head in the clouds, and it's not substantiated by anything. But if they could imagine it or will it into a being through their imagination and their plays and their works, and that's how they accomplish it. And there's a lot of stuff out there that speaks to that idea.
I think you had a great insight on that talk. I heard that talk where you covered that, and I thought that was very perceptive, because people approaching these things to research them, look at them, try to figure them out, we have a tendency to take all or nothing approaches. I mean, humans just do that in general. They have an all or nothing approach. So they'll say, oh, so you're saying everybody in this is an actor and they're all in on it, and they're all, no. Now, some of them are actors and they're in on it, but number one, they may be in on it only at a compartmentalized level, and number two, they may be in on it because they legitimately believe some stupid idea that the government is actually going to confiscate guns to help people. It's the same time, and I know you've met these people, right? So it's not outside of the realm of possibility to think, just go down to your local theater group, go to your local college and start talking to the theater department students. They will be complete morons, but they will believe this kind of stuff. Take a poll, I guarantee you 99% of them will be, quote, Democrats, and they'll be for transgender, gun restriction, total communism, basically, is the only way to put it, although it's not called communism anymore, but that's what it is.
Well, yeah, we see that too with this transgender garbage, is that, you can, change your mind, and then you could become, a male can become a female just by, adopting the trappings of femininity, and then, changing your name, and then, presto change, Bruce is now, Caitlin, and, hey, shit doesn't work that way. So that's another example of just totally trying to will away or imagine away a biological fact of reality, and then just so we can and then enforce that into the society at large, as if that actually transformed Bruce into a woman, which it absolutely does not. And another odd thing, as an aside, is like he still dates women. That doesn't make any damn sense. But anyway, yeah.
Right.
And he still has the same voice.
Still has the same voice. Yeah.
He still has his thing-a-ling, doesn't he?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, yes. Come on. We Chris and I called that from the start that was total. This is a total. He's doing this for no
lamb job.
Right.
Yeah.
It's fake.
Yeah, if his voice ain't changing, then he's not doing no hormones or nothing, right? I think that goes with it, right? If you start bombarding yourself with female hormones, doesn't your voice automatically change? I don't know.
Look, it's not beyond the pale of possibility that 10, 15, 20 years ago, whenever it was he started this supposed transformation, that different research groups, different think tanks, Pentagon, who knows, maybe they approached them and said, hey, we've got a long-term plan to reorganize this country and ultimately reorganize social structure as a whole. And what we're going to need is different faces for different things. So we're going to need an Obama-type character, the new face of the presidency, and then maybe some kind of feminist like Hillary. We're going to need the new face of sports, the new face of gender, the new face of modeling, which is these like 400-pound Tessa Holiday, this disgusting 400-pound supposed supermodel. Give me a break.
Wow, really? I never heard of that.
Oh, yeah, you got to look up Tessa Holiday. And there's also now, by the way, a Down syndrome supermodel.
Oh.
Now, I don't understand that all of these are, of course, just intended to be emotional heartstring things. Oh, it's so awesome that a Down syndrome girl's a supermodel now. But she's not attractive. So what you have to understand is that nor is Tessa Holiday, by the way, being 400 pounds.
Well, yeah.
But what these things are they're new icons, and they're new icons of a new society, a new social order, a new man. Again, I hate to beat to beat on this so often, but it's just Brave New World, and that's everything that's in Brave New World, is how everything is socially engineered, reconstructed into a new form for the purpose of making everything more manageable. So basically you just invert everything, including gender. And so I wouldn't be surprised if the Jenners weren't approached and said, we will make you into billionaires over the next 20 years as long as you go along with this agenda. Maybe you don't even have to actually become a woman, but if you will play this role for the next foreseeable decade or so, we will make sure that, the money's come in.
Well, yeah, we also discussed how demasculinizing that is to have a sports management icon like Bruce Jenner.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Change himself into that, and then also, it's like we were also given false ideals, with supermodels and all that. I mean, obviously, supermodels are beautiful women. But we were given these false ideals, and now we're having them replaced. And I've said this for a long time that they give you something that's allegedly an ideal, so that they can pull the rug out from it under it later.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm not denying that there's levels of manipulation, back in the beginning of advertising and modeling and all that fit with those times, and that's engineered as well. But I think what I'm getting at is just that this is a whole nother level where we're not just being told that the supermodel model needs to be really thin. We're not being told that you need to have this outfit to be in the class of the so-called supermodels. Now what we're being told is that the future is anything perverse, anything completely out of the norm. In other words, maybe it's rising in America, but not many women are 400 pounds that are like 25, right? So, nor are there many transgendered persons, right? These are like 0.01%, the transgenders at least, of the population. But these fringe groups, these small oddities are being projected into 24/7 bombardment on purpose to literally to invert everything. So it's not even about male and female beauty anymore. It's about the complete inversion, and it's a direct attack on humanity itself.
Yeah, the standard was set for celebrity stardom, what is considered attractive or appealing, and then now we're going into a phase where you too can be a part of this culture that was established.
Oh yes, right, and it doesn't matter if you're 400 pounds
right.
or you have Down syndrome. You can be part of this social media narcissistic attention whoring, basically.
Yeah, which initially started out. If you go back,
that's a better way of saying what I was saying. You guys articulated it much better.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, if you go back, 40 years ago, and look at what would be considered a supermodel, right? So you guys know what I'm talking about. Like, what was the set standard of beauty back then?
Right.
Not real skinny.
Kind of a Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, Marilyn Monroe. Yeah.
Hippie look, and then it turns into, by the 90s, by the 80s, it's kind of the fit Cindy Crawford look, and then by the 90s, it starts turning into the heroin chic waif who can't even eat.
Even before that, they transformed the 40s and 50s type woman in the mod 60s London with Twiggy. When we brought up Twiggy, and Twiggy was the first waif.
She was the first waif, right? Yeah. So what you notice in a lot of these different areas is that one pops up as kind of the pioneer a decade or two early, right? So there's Twiggy, maybe, so RuPaul in the 90s. Oh, we have this transvestite, but that may be preparing the way for the Jenner to come along. I'm just throwing that out there, speculating. Maybe they have like the pioneer who comes along as the first one a decade or two ahead.
Hey, bosom. All I gotta say is bosom buddies.
Bosom buddies.
Remember that TV show with Tom Hanks where he had to dress like a woman in order to get the cheap rent at his apartment?
Yeah, there were some films. Tootsie with Dustin Hoffman. There was, what was that awful, I never watched it, but remember it was Patrick Swayze and Wesley Snipes and I think John Leguizamo, Tu Wong Fu or something.
Tu Wong Fu.
Well, you can go back before that. There was like a one with Marilyn Monroe in it, right? With a couple of actors that dress like women. Yeah.
Rocky Horror Picture Show, yeah.
Yeah. That's,
and then the Rocky Horror Picture Show, it comes out at the same time. Plus, you got to remember too something about Rocky Horror Picture Show. That was the longest running movie for quite a long time. Like it ran in London for years, and same thing out here in LA. Like still to this day, they have midnight, weekly midnight showings of the Rocky Horror Picture Show that gets packed with, hundreds of people. And that movie came out right at the height of the glam rock phenomenon, which was the transition from the mod rocker era of music into this glam rock with like David Bowie and T-Rex and what was androgynous chic.
Yes. Now,
so,
it's
all running parallel. Movies, music, everything, and then we lead up into the current.
Now, the ancient world was the same way. It's not like they weren't into having masked balls in the Renaissance or all the way back to ancient Greece or their orgiastic plays. All that's old news. So humans have always had a fascination with the bizarre and the grotesque and the carnival, so to speak. The difference is that it was not scientifically sophisticated, I don't believe, in the ancient world. Yes, the elites in the ancient world, medieval world, Renaissance world had a good sense of human nature, and they knew how to manipulate, and there were spy masters back then and all that. I know that, but now it's a scientific dictatorship, and it really is. And it's a much better perfected pragmatic methodology of altering mass social waves than it was in the past, I think.
Yeah, what's interesting about glam rock is that you have this feminine approach to the aesthetic, and then coupled with the hyper promiscuous guy that is just out for sex and has sex with groups of women and groupies, and so it was taking something that would be a dress and appearance that would be considered in any other context, gay or queer,
right?
And then taking that and coupling it with like over the top, distorted hyper masculinity.
It is weird. Yes. The Warrant, Motley Crue, all those bands, you would see them in their videos. They'd be spraying hairspray on, like they're in dressing rooms, putting on makeup, spraying hairspray on their long golden locks, and then then they're out with all these supermodels or whatever. So don't forget.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, remember too, into the 90s and the grunge phase, quite a few alternative grunge bands would play live in dresses as well. Nirvana would, the Meat Puppets would play in dresses. Quite a few of those bands continued that trend too.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. The plus, I mean, even getting into the Britpop. Like Britpop came around in the 90s after glam rock did, and there was an androgynous theme running through a lot of the Britpop stuff as well.
Back to even Gary Newman. Gary Newman would dress very feminine at times with a lot of makeup.
Yeah, I remember that band Suede. Remember them?
Yes.
Yeah, Suede. I swear that guy. I thought that guy was a girl. So, like for a year. I thought it was a girl singing like a guy, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's a dude. But anyways, yeah. So this is, this type of stuff leads up into the present day. And who I've really been enjoying a lot of talks on more recently, and I thought you might want to comment on this as well, Jason, since the movie is Lennon Honor has been doing a lot of stuff about masculinity and hip hop for quite a long time.
I heard you guys talk with him, and I've heard a couple other talks of his. I haven't followed a whole lot of his stuff, but I did. There was this chick.
Did you see Straight Outta Compton?
No, I don't care. No, I mean, I in a trivial way, I am interested in hip hop as it's used, but I'm not really that into that per se. I mean, I'll listen to it as a joke, but no, I don't care enough to go watch that movie. No, but I know that it's absolutely a completely created social thing. And in fact, I saw an article not too long ago about Dr. Dre himself. He was not a thug.
Yeah. Oh no, he was. If you could go back, his first group was something called the was it Soul Sonic Force, or was it?
Yeah.
I can't remember, but they wore lipstick and lace cravats. They were, they dressed like Prince in the Revolution.
Yeah.
And that's how they dressed. So he wore lipstick, he wore earrings, he wore frilly lace cravats with purple satin sashes and all sorts of weird stuff. So, and same thing with the other guy in NWA. I think it was MC Yella.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Yeah, Lennon Honor does a great analysis on NWA and how not only is it, derogatory towards women in hip hop's approach to it, but by being derogatory towards women, you are actually demasculinizing yourself, because a good point I heard on one of his podcasts was that the derogatory terms towards women, i.e. bitch, hoe, all those type of things, are actually used towards men more often in hip-hop than they are towards women.
What I'm curious about that. How does he come to that conclusion? Because, well, maybe if you look at the recent phenomena of the rap battle, where this is like the YouTube trend, where all these guys get together.
That's actually an old thing from the beginning, where it started. It was started.
Well, I know the rap battle,
where guys were dissing each other.
I know the rap battle's old, and that you go on the street corner, and rap and diss your buddy, and try to see who had the best diss. But I'm saying that's kind of the new popular trend on YouTube in terms of hip hop.
Mm-hmm. I've actually heard that rap battles are ancient. That have a tradition that goes way back.
We would actually talk about that in some of my Renaissance literature classes, that people would actually go to the pub,
mm-hmm.
and you'd go down there, and whoever was the best lyricist, you would have these battles back and forth dissing each other.
Yeah.
There's a Steve Martin movie that references this, the one where he's got the big nose, where he's playing Cyrano.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene that's based on that old tradition.
Roxanne.
Say what?
Yeah. Roxanne is.
That's it, Roxanne. I couldn't think of it. Yeah, in Roxanne, he does that 20 disses in a row based on that tradition, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. So it gets. What is your take on it? Did rap music kind of get spontaneously generated out of the urban areas, like that's purported to be, and then later get co-opted, or I don't know, how these things actually come about, but
I would guess so. I mean, I don't know that it was totally created, because there are organic movements, and
right.
Black culture does have that tradition of since you don't have money for instruments, you may be in a situation of extreme poverty. So, you want to make music. Well, you're sitting around with your friends making music with your mouth. You start beatboxing, you're playing with, buckets as drumsticks, Yeah,
I think that's important to point out that, when we're talking about this, we're not saying that, it is created from its inception as being a control tool. It's just, because here's the thing too. Here's my take on the quote unquote controllers. I think they're absolutely just based on maybe their personality makeup or something like that. I got a sense that they are totally bereft of creativity.
Yeah.
That they have zero creativity. Whatever they take, they steal or co-opt.
Yes.
And use it.
There was I think it was Anthony Bourdain, and I'm not really a big fan of that show. I don't really care for it, but I think I caught one segment he did one time where he was in some weirdo country, I don't remember where, eating the weirdest, nastiest food. And he was making the point that this was for so long, maybe it was even, I don't know if it was caviar or snails in some part of, I don't know, that it was somewhere in the middle of nowhere, I thought. But anyway, he was making the point that it used to be the lowest peasant food. If you were eating this, you were the most dirt poor, you couldn't scrape 2 pence together. And over time, it became the most elite dish that you could have. So the upper class, the bourgeois, do have this affinity, this fascination, this tendency to adopt the lowest forms of things just out of a fancy, out of a whim, out of,
a bit of like adventurism or something, you know.
Oh yes, oh darling, let's try the snail. I hear the poor, they eat the snail. Oh darling, let's try one. Oh, you must have the snails at the next ball. Oh yes. Oh. It really though. I think
that's funny.
Wait, work.
That's funny, but you know, it is true that like Chris was saying, that these people lack creativity and they lack general intelligence, just general intelligence, because they have to even have the Huxleys and the Darwins and those folks run the empire for them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't think that David Rockefeller is going into, he's not sitting around in a laboratory somewhere looking at all of the stuff that's being created. I mean, maybe he is, but I doubt it. He's of the banking class, and those people stick to what they know, and they rely on the other classes knowing their place and knowing what they're supposed to do.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, and then that hyper left brain is the opposite of the hyper right brain artistic types who are actually creative, but they're just unfortunately duped by the paymasters and the patrons. So they think they're being blessed by Rockefeller Art National Endowment for Arts or Oppenheimer's or whatever. They don't realize they're being used in social engineering. But actually, I think it's progressing beyond the point where actually creative people are patronized. So if we think back to Michelangelo and his different court patrons, I mean, Michelangelo did at least produce some pretty amazing paintings and whatnot, right? Yeah. Nowadays, it's actually, that is inverted to where the most decadent, the most bizarre Damien Hirst, or even the most talentless art. I saw some presentation video about a year ago from MoMA, which I've actually been to that place, and it's unbelievably ridiculous.
Yeah.
Museum of Modern Art. So, and what it's like, it was a trash can with garbage, and then the garbage was like strewn out of the art gallery into the hall and then into the street.
Oh, I have that in my alley out here. I think somebody did an art installation in my alley. I didn't know it was an art installation. I was like, fuck, I got to pick this up, but no, it's going to stay. It's an art installation.
And every time I think about that, I think back to this old Family Ties episode where, if you remember Family Ties, the daughter, Michael J. Fox's character was the yuppie, and his sister was the, goody-goody type, if I recall. And so to rebel, she started dating Nick, and Nick was this idiot artist who made art with his garbage.
That's right. I remember that. They would always go to his house, and he would be blow torching like something together.
Right.
And that's exactly it. There's something else I saw fairly recently. It was an episode of what was that show with Ted Knight? Too Close for Comfort. Remember that show?
I've forgotten it, but yeah.
Yeah. So it was a clip. It was a clip I was watching of Ted Knight. I think Ted Knight's hilarious. But I was watching this clip of Ted Knight, and that show's on circa 1980, 81, around there. And he's renting out one of his apartments, and the guy says, "Oh, he says, well, what do you do for a living?" And
we lose signal. Hello, is anybody there?
And he says, "Yep." It's just the girls don't sit still when I'm trying to paint them. Huh?
We lost you, John.
Well, here's something crazy.
Oh, he dropped out.
That this reminds me of the inversion, subversion, destruction of all the arts. when I was a senior in high school, I took my senior trip to New York, and I was doing stand-up at a couple places at the time. That was kind of my first adventure into, I'm going to just go to New York and audition and do some stand-up. Which was a lot of fun. And we took a lot of tours while I was there. I was there for about a week. And one of the tours was of all the cathedrals, different denominations, whatever. The most memorable thing that I recall, and I promise you this is true, I'm not making this up. Mm-hmm. I tell this story, people don't believe me. There was a Methodist cathedral that they had renovated that we went to. And there was a stained glass, they had redone all the stained glass, and one of the images, I kid you not, was all of the apostles riding in a Ferrari.
Really?
I'm not joking, yes.
Oh my goodness. That's funny.
It's funny that you see that. Well, they did this kind of with the Hard Rock Cafe, where you go inside and it's like I don't know if the original one. I think that maybe the original one actually was like a remodeled church or something like that. So it's like the whole motif that as you're walking in, it's all like kind of going into a church, but like you'll see, the apostles in a Ferrari or something like that on the wall. That's interesting.
You might expect that in Joel Osteen's stadium church or something, but to see this 200-year-old cathedral remodeled to have the apostles in a Ferrari and stained glass and this really ornate large window, I'd never seen anything like that.
Well, yeah, isn't the whole theater culture or theater Hollywood and stardom and all that? That's a new type of religion, and all this culture and all this stuff. It's a type of religion, definitely. So that's the fitting theme to incorporate.
I think it's absolutely fitting for modern religion and modern American religion in particular. I don't think you could find a better icon than that.
Yeah, like I think Neil deGrasse Tyson has a new program. Like, I think a good recommendation for his set would be have like stained glass windows, but have like all the like different Star Trek characters or something in each one, or something like an individual.
Hey, Chris, you're not far off, because in the authorized biography of the Rockefellers by Collier and Horowitz, there's a whole chapter on the Rockefeller Memorial Cathedral, Riverside Cathedral, and it has Riverside Church has statues of Darwin, Moses, Thomas Jefferson. Right. Yes,
I've been there.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, why am I laughing at that? That's not out of sorts with everything else.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
I've been to that church. They also have this bizarre sculpture there. I don't even know what it is. It's like that's what attracted me to it. I did not even know what that church was.
Right.
But I remember I was sitting across the street at a cafe, and I'm like going, "What is that sculpture?" And it's like this arm coming out of something with like a crab leg. I can't even remember what. Yeah, it's something like, maybe. The only thing I could think of what it originally made me think of is Dali's The Birth of Narcissus.
Yes.
With that, where the arm's coming out of the egg or whatever. And I was like, what is that sculpture? So I go over and I look at it, and it's a bizarre piece. So I start walking around the church, and I'm like going, dude, there's a sculpture of Charles Darwin at this church. Yeah, it was pretty. And then to read about what that church is, it's like, oh my gosh, this is wild.
Riverside Church, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
It's basically just a completely created Rockefeller church. I think it was the Presbyterian Charles, one of the major evolution / social gospel pioneers. I forget his name, but he used to be the famous minister of Riverside Cathedral. But There's also the Duke University Cathedral is very similar. It's also a pan-religious, non-denominational, Masonic, quote, church, which I've seen and taken pictures of too.
Oh, this is where they had. Oh man, yeah, I remember. Okay, on 9/11. So I think it was.
Yes, Bush and all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, that they all had that. Now, you talk about going into the Twilight Zone. It was television like the day after 9/11. It's like they had all this stuff pre-prepared. They had to have, and then it was stuff like this. Like they talked about where Jesse Jackson, Desmond Tutu, Fidel Castro, and Nelson Mandela were all there at the Riverside Church, and they had. It's just all this crazy stuff was going on, and then like they had these. They would switch over to. They would go from that to like the guy from the Goo Goo Dolls talking a bunch of shit. This is. I remember watching that. I said, "Oh my God, what's happening?"
Just stop for a minute and think about that alone. That alone is mind-bogglingly insane. I mean, that just shows how fake it all is.
Oh,
Nelson Mandela's supposed to be a communist, right? I mean,
oh no, it's just totally over.
Fidel
Castro. Have you ever seen, Jay, that the day Nelson Mandela died, the Mandela movie was premiering?
Yes.
And it was premiering in London, and Prince Harry was there, watching it, or not Prince Harry, Prince William. He was there, and he got up and he made a big speech about how great and wonderful Nelson Mandela was. But Nelson Mandela just happened to die while his movie was being premiered in London for the world.
Yes. Now, you want to know why they were saying he was such a great guy?
Nelson Mandela?
Tell us.
Because
tell us why.
Stephen Dorrell, in his MI6 massive tome, explains that Nelson Mandela worked for MI6. And that is why Nelson Mandela had a huge estate. Well, I don't want to say estate, but a very nice townhome that's very large in London.
Yeah. Makes total sense.
That's also why Mandela was made a Knight of St. John's Hospitaller, one of those British knighthoods. Yes, you'll notice that the centers of world terror, Londonistan, and the tendency for the left socialist international is generally London as well.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Fabians were all done out of. That's funny because my daughter has some. I think about that every time my daughter reads some Beatrix Potter books. Because the Webbs, Beatrix Potter, Beatrice Webb, she was one of the founding members of the Fabian Society with H.G. Wells and what's the guy's name? Oh my gosh, the playwright.
Bernard Shaw.
Bernard Shaw. But also, they were called the Cliveden set, right? Because that's the house they would meet up with the Astor family. Mm-hmm. That's the other bizarre thing. You can see they met at the Astor family's house, the London Astors, not the New York ones, but the you see this very famous picture of Madame Astor on a ship, going to America, and she's hanging out with George Bernard Shaw, and they're laughing together in the picture. But there's always this like ironic caption underneath it, like, oh, it's so funny that this. That this heiress is hanging out with George Bernard Shaw, the, hardcore socialist who wants to kill everybody. And so, yeah, there's all sorts of pictures like that throughout history where, Stalin and Churchill hanging out with Roosevelt. And there's always funny little captions like that. So funny because it's a big joke.
Right. It reminds me of, I came across a picture a long time ago of, it was either Nelson or David Rockefeller partying and hanging out with Papa Doc Duvalier, the voodoo president of Haiti.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that's Nelson.
Is that Nelson?
There's also the famous picture of David and Fidel Castro hanging out together.
Yeah.
Now, was it Michael Rockefeller that got ate by cannibals? I forget his name. Yeah, Michael.
Yeah,
Michael was Nelson's son.
David's memoirs are full of glowing praise for Communist China. Communist China was the first to allow Chase Bank.
Oh yeah. Well, I've seen stuff, and I've ran across stuff too that it may have been Nelson, and he was taught maybe an interview. I don't know. It's been a long time ago, so I can't. My memory's fuzzy on it. But basically, talking about how they set up Mao and all that. They put him in place, and then it was all set up for. They were responsible for.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. I don't know about. I mean, I'm not surprised of Nelson's involvement, but I did track down. I did a piece on that called Western Support for Communism, CIA, OSS, and the CFR. And I found the CFR archives where they discussed Mao and Mao as a Yali. The Asia Society, the Rockefeller Asia Society, actually had a old archived piece just about Mao being involved in Yale and China.
Yeah.
And so Bill Donovan, if you go into, I've got two books that discuss this. One is a book on the Chinese Secret Service. Where is that? I'll find that in a minute, but it's a book on the here it is. Fauget and Hoffer have a book. Coffer. Fauget and Coffer, Chinese Secret Service. There's a whole chapter on Bill Donovan setting up the Maoist spy network in China. So and by the way, the CIA website, the archives have a whole piece on training Mao's guerrillas through Bill Donovan. Bill Donovan's biography also discusses it too.
Well, that all stands to reason. I mean, how the hell does the communism just pops up out of nowhere, and then it's just all of a sudden becomes industrialized, and then all of a sudden we're sending all our industry over there, and then the predominant retailer in the whole entire planet, Walmart, just happens to come out of the Rockefeller stronghold in Arkansas, and biggest trucking, the premier trucking company comes out of Arkansas, and then the Tyson Foods comes out of Arkansas, the biggest meat shipper in the world. And yes, that's all out of Arkansas, yeah.
That's what's crazy is that, as we were saying earlier, all these idiot leftists and artists, all the art crowd, the creative music crowd, they all love communism, and they're so completely brainwashed and dumb that they don't realize that every bit of this is completely controlled by the people that they think they're fuck the man. You gotta fight the man.
Brought to you by the Rockefeller Foundation. Fuck the man. Yeah. I mean, no, literally, that's like what it's. What is it? PBS. Every other, on the hour, on the half an hour, they're thanking the Rockefeller.
Oh yeah, last time I turned on NPR, which was 2-3 years ago, I just turned it on for like a minute, and immediately what I heard was a segment on putting old people to death, euthanasia through vaccines. Could we implement a vaccination program for euthanasia? And then it ended with, thank you to the Gates Foundation.
I know, it's so... And this stuff is not hidden. Like if you go pull up Memorandum 200, the Kissinger memo, and then you go read all the organizations that he proposes that, we need population control, oh my God, we're all going to die, we're all going to be swimming around our own shit and everything, we got to kill a bunch of people, and then it's like all the organizations that he names are all they're all tied to this Gavi, the Global Alliance for Vaccination Initiative, and then it's all those organizations and then the Gates Foundation. And it's like, holy crap, how more blatant can it be? But see, that's not, I mean, you can go pull up Memorandum 200 off official government sites, like right now, as you're listening to this, and go look at that, and then pull that up and look at it, and then put it side by side with the gavi.org, gavi.org. Another
document very crucial that you can pull up that is one page that spells it all out is I think it's the 1969 Population Council Memorandum on the promotion of homosexuality and abortion. I don't know if you guys have seen that one, but it's definitely worth looking at because it's right at the cusp of the free love revolution, 60s revolution, drug, rock and roll, blah, blah, blah. And what is the Pentagon talking about? All of that. It's talking about we've got to promote homosexuality to cut down on population. We've got to re-engineer the society. We've got to have abortion clinics in every major city. We've got to have, it just goes through everything. It even talks about getting everyone on the dole, right? Because that will break up families. Now, we've all heard people, Aaron Russo, talk about what the Rockefellers told him secondhand and all this stuff. No. Forget all that. This is an actual white paper from the Population Council. If you Google Population Council promotion of homosexuality and then click the images, it'll come up. You'll see 100 images of it. But yeah, that's a great one. And it spells it all out, even to the point of taxation. It even says we've got to tax these people more. Heavy taxation will cut down on population because people won't be able to afford having kids. Oh, yeah. Wives will have to work, blah, blah, blah.
Right, yeah. So, yeah, you could pull this stuff up. It's Population Council Promotion of Homosexuality. Yeah, a bunch of stuff comes up. And, yeah, it's from official sources where they're not going through great pains to conceal any of this, And, didn't they honor Margaret Sanger at the, what was that? You know what I'm talking about, just recently?
I don't know about recently, no.
Yeah, they put a statue of her somewhere, and there was a black organization protesting it, which was pretty out of the ordinary.
Right.
But I don't know the name of that organization, but yeah, they were just pointing out, oh yeah, Margaret Sanger's, the white nationalist, it gets thrown around here, just that as a political weapon, but here we have somebody that is maybe not expressly stated, but is no doubt a white supremacist by their writings. And then here you are honoring her and putting statues of her up in this taxpayer funded wherever it was, museum somewhere.
Well, it makes me think of your very insightful point in your long dissection of scientism and Darwinism about the state church. That was a great point because the last time I was in Chicago, I have a buddy who draws comics, and we went to a convention for he draws Game of Thrones, and I wanted to go to the big museum there because that's a relatively famous, science, history museum, whatever. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you walk in that place, it is nothing but the shrine to Saint Darwin. I hadn't been there since I was a kid. So I'm like standing at the thing where they scan you to see if you're a terrorist or whatever.
Right.
About to walk through the scanner to go into this museum, and all I can see right away is like 5 or 6 straight up Darwin exhibits. I just turned around and left. I was like, I'm not paying $15 to walk through this 2-hour Darwin exhibit.
Yeah, to get elaborate indoctrination into Darwin theory and all
you
that.
You made such a great point that all these goofballs that I don't have to pay for no church, man. I live in a free country, man. This is separation of freedom of religion, separation church and state. And then everybody's tax money goes to that.
I know. And the thing too, I try to drive this point home, is that I brought up Tiktaalik, right? So yeah, we got a transition between a fish and salamander, and yeah, that's proof of Darwinism. And just trying to draw the comparison between something like that, a claim based on a physical object. In that case, a set of bones, petrified bones, and a claim is imposed upon it, or an interpretation is imposed upon this object, and just trying to like if you were to find that on your own, that you would never draw any kind of conclusions like that.
That's presuppositionalism, right? That's completely the philosophy of thought that I would agree with, where everybody is operating under this mistaken impression that there's such a thing as brute facts, that you just see a thing and it's just automatically got this complete, it's like things just have a Wikipedia in them inherently. And you just look at the thing and your mind Wikipedia's what that is and has a perfectly accurate brute factual interpretation of the thing, apart from anything previous in your life. All that set aside, you're now just purely objective, right? It's the ultimate enlightenment, tabula rasa. Like, I can just look at this thing and I see what it is. And so everyone has this completely baloney philosophical assumption, and they don't ever even question it. They just like that Colavito, whatever that guy's name was that you were talking with, I'm sitting there listening to it, and I was going crazy walking around the room pacing the list. I was like, does no one consider the possibility that when you see on Wikipedia some image of the bones of the transition fossils that are supposed to be, does it not occur that these are just bones that are given a narrative? They're given a story.
Exactly. Yeah,
and as long as you start with that presupposition, you will go down that track. You will interpret things through that lens, through those glasses. Yeah. Until someone comes along and questions the lens and the glass, takes those glasses off and smashes them because they're not true. They're blinders.
Right. And I think something that's directly analogous to that is, I use the example of the Mormon tablets of gold with the Book of Mormon on the original ones. I guess they got misplaced or something. But, if they turn up or whatever, they're this object of veneration, they're proof that establishes, Joseph Smith's claims of, receiving those from an angel. Yeah. And, but, I make the point that outside of that context, that you give interpretive context of what those tablets are, you never draw those conclusions on your own.
Yes.
And if you, if you're trying to get the determining factor of what makes something a fact, and then and how you can compare that to like a Tiktaalik, a set of bones, the only thing that is the determining factor is an appeal to authority.
Yes.
That's the only thing that's the only thing that establishes Tiktaalik as a transitional, and it's the same thing that establishes the tablets of gold as being from an angel. It's the same exact process. Yes. It's exactly analogous.
Now, one of the favorite classes my favorite classes in undergrad, and then more so the in-depth work that I did in grad school, was on philosophy of science and this very topic. Because none of these scientific crowd know anything about epistemology, and they don't question epistemology. So that they don't even know how to ask those questions, because they're not taught any of that stuff, critical thinking or philosophy in college. All they do is just go directly into some biology program that starts with the presupposition of endless aeons and transitions from species give rise to new species and all this. And the best here's a great analogy I could think of for that occurred to me when I was doing some of my grad work. There is a good picture of this in the film Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. And if you recall the plot, Max is back from losing all the gas, or he lost all the gas in Road Warrior, so he's back, and civilization is completely gone, but it's being rebuilt in what's called Bartertown. Now, this is going to sound a little out there, but there's a reason why I'm talking about all this. So, in Bartertown, it's run by, I'm going blank here. What the singer? We Don't Need Another Hero.
I know what you're talking about. Tina Turner?
Yeah, Tina Turner, yeah,
Okay.
blank. So Tina Turner is the autocratic dictator of Bartertown, and she lives above everybody in this high up platform.
Until
But
Ike shows up.
Yeah. Underneath Bartertown, its economy is based on pig shit. And so it's run by Master Blaster, who represents kind of the industry, the real economy of Bartertown. And there's this war between Auntie, as she's called, up in her tower, and the underground economy that back and forth they have this battle. So this is actually the rebirth of civilization, and Max doesn't fit in there either. So when he gets excommunicated from new so-called civilization, which is all a scam, by the way, the MC in the Thunderdome wears a large Masonic square and compass, by the way, giving you the impression that the Masonic power is very much involved in the entertainment, because Auntie even says that entertainment is what keeps these people happy. Otherwise, they would rebel against Bartertown's scam. So Max gets excommunicated, and if you recall, he's discovered by this group of children, kind of echoing a Peter Pan scenario. Mm-hmm. And they have constructed a mythology. All they knew was from the wreckage of the plane. Turns out during the apocalypse, they were in some 747 or something, and it crashed. And they've survived somehow by living out in the wilderness in this this Peter Pan fairy tale land, anyway, type place. And so they discover Max, and they interpret him as a savior. Uh-huh. And this is the most profound scene in the movie, is the scene where they do the tell, where they remember that there was this thing called a television, but it's actually just these sticks that they've whittled together into a square. And they do this religious ceremony where they repeat the tribe's mythology that they call the tell. And what is the tell? The tell is a series of Viewmaster pictures. Uh-huh. If you remember that kid toy, the Viewmaster, right?
I remember that scene, yeah.
Right. So all they had in their Viewmaster was about 6 or 7 images. One was of a pilot. One was of a city. One was of a woman at a Vegas showgirl. And there were a couple others, like maybe a TV or something, a toy, I don't remember. But what they had done is constructed an entire mythology around these pictures. So that was their underlying presupposition of how to interpret the world based on their religious mythology.
Right.
So when Mad Max shows up with gray hair, he looks a lot like Captain Walker. And Captain Walker is their savior figure, that they've interpreted the crashed plane as this kind of redemptive cross that you can fly away into the sky in. And atop that plane is Captain Walker. Mm-hmm. All of this is not true. All they found was a Viewmaster with just these random pictures of nothing, right?
Right.
But they constructed a complete mythology, so their interpretation of the event of Mad Max showing up, who is not Captain Walker, is that he must be Captain Walker. And Max cannot convince the tribe of kids, well, they're teens by the time, teens and youngins, by the time he gets there. He cannot convince them that he's not Captain Walker. And that's very profound, because that is the way humans actually operate. They do not operate in the way that Colavito and Dawkins and Hitchens and Harris and all these goofballs think, where science is this neutral ground of brute facts, and that when a human comes to some phenomenon of experience to interpret it, that they can somehow bracket away every other prior preconception or presupposition or assumption and just read it as it is. That is absolutely, completely impossible. And on top of that, it's utterly retarded and stupid to even think that you could do that. Because there's no thing you can look at without thinking about the prior experiences you've had with that thing.
Right.
Quite obviously.
Right.
So they're no different than the kids who are basically Peter Pan's group of lost boys. Mm-hmm. They're the lost boys in their epistemology who have concocted this fairy tale that imposes a mythology, an eisegesis on top of supposedly neutral facts in the world.
Yeah, and equally as valid from that perspective.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. People have really a difficult time coming to terms with it. Like, it's like getting into discussions with people online. And, what's always kind of thrown at you is, well, this or that or the other thing, or a lot of emphasis is put on peer review, right? And so that's actually a mythological construct. You think about it as well. It's
you just ask these people, have you reviewed the peer review? No, and not a damn one of them has.
No,
it's all the fallacy of authority, and it pisses me off as much as it pisses you off, because I swear I've had this debate 200 times with the scientific materialistic types, and there's no other way to describe it than what you said originally, that they just have a meltdown because they know, I think they know that they can't answer that question. They know how ridiculous it is.
Yeah, and then they can't answer it without completely flying in the face from every other, knocking themselves off their own stool of, assuming an authority and then kind of cascading everything else off of that one presumption. And once you challenge that one presumption, it's like, okay, where's your facts and evidence that establish your primary presumption that everything that it comes out of this, quote unquote, peer review process is somehow legitimate. And, even if you point out something like, oh, here's, like we were talking about this, and you send a link to, half of all published literature is bunk, and one of the head guys over that admits it, and then that gets out in the news, and then you go looking for it, and you find all kinds of stuff where the peer review process is rigged. Here's another example of it. Here's one where they're taking just deliberate open bribes for peer review and all that, and you could present somebody with that, and just take a guess of what would be the response.
Oh, I already know the responses because I've had the same interaction many times as well. And the responses are either ad hominems, or they are, well, these are exceptions. This is not the norm. It's just all bullshit responses. But,
I get the response.
But it begs the question, because that's the very thing that we're asking. We're asking,
right,
how do you know that the peer reviews that you think you know are correct? You don't know.
Right. Yeah, and the news stories I'm not presenting those as proof and facts. To prove a negative, the burden of proof is not on me. I could give them that, because if they establish authority as a source of objective fact in of its own, so they have to accept the media as well. Here's something from the media that here's two counter claims.
Yeah. This week also, I had a discussion about Tyson, for example. All right, let's set aside the scientism question. Let's look at that guy. Why does Neil deGrasse Tyson not deviate in any point from the establishment narrative of everything? I mean, seriously, if he's supposed to be a rational, objective, scientific thinker, then how come he believes and propagates the establishment line on every single point? He goes on mainstream media and talks about how good GMOs are. He says he's gonna debate anybody who's anti-vaccine. He says he's gonna help establish scientism everywhere. I mean, you name any point, he thinks anybody who questions 9/11, you're an idiot. If he's 100% down the line establishment, right? Now,
right.
When you talk to the scientific types, as for example when you called the observatory fellow and had that conversation with him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of the more critically thinking types amongst the scientific academia spectrum, they'll tend to actually say things like, well, you can't really trust the mainstream media. Well, you can't really trust the government. Well, you can't always trust this or that. There's a lot of bad science. There's a lot of bad pop show science out there. There's a lot of error. They'll talk about how screwed up things are all the time.
Yeah.
But now wait a minute. If the mainstream is screwed up all the time and wrong all the time, well then how come Dawkins and Hitchens and Tyson and Nye are completely on board with all of the mainstream things that are supposedly wrong all the time.
Right. Right.
I mean, in other words, if you're a scientist, don't you think that there would be some level of critical thinking where you would question the establishment line on all these things? I mean, wouldn't there be at least one point where you deviate?
I would venture to guess that the whole quote-unquote skeptic, community that's been set up out there is a psychological operation.
Oh, I think it totally is. Yeah, but look at Michael Shermer is a great example of somebody who's completely establishment. I mean, that guy doesn't question anything establishment as a supposed skeptic.
Like Sam Harris is the same way. Why are they all the same way? They don't deviate from each other. It's like they're all kind of...
they don't have any differing opinions. It's
none.
Because it's like, they're supposed to have the total answer to everything. Well, we've got the answer to everything.
Well, this way they can, define for the masses what it means to be a critical thinker and what it means to be a skeptic. Which is, it's quite bizarre how absolutely 180 degree or inverted or turned inside out that the whole so-called skeptic community is. It's the exact diametric opposite of what they purport to be.
Here's another hypocrisy you can point out when you're arguing with these goofballs. They'll always tell you, you don't have a degree in astronomy. You don't have a degree in this or that. Where's your degree in this or that? Oh, I'm not an expert on that field. I can't speak on it. Mm-hmm. Neil deGrasse Tyson studied astronomy. Now, where does he get off talking to everybody about biology and Darwinian evolution?
Right.
His degree is not in biology.
So neither is Bill Nye. He's like he's got an engineering degree or something like that.
So from their perspective, that's completely not something they should do. You shouldn't be talking about a field that you don't know about because it's all highly compartmentalized and specialized. How dare you speak on terms of biology which you know nothing about? You don't have a degree in that topic.
No, it is totally illogical. And then, if you're going to get into discussion with any of these people, you're going to run into logical fallacy after logical fallacy. It's amazing. It's almost like they have all kind of adopted the same playbook. And, the reason being is because those are effective lines of argumentation, whether you like it or not. They're all invalid and they're all logically incongruent and false if you point them out as being that. But these contrived debates, the creation evolution debates, and all these other stuff, they never go into questioning the foundational premises on what the scientists' arguments are based on. So that's another way that this stuff gets perpetuated is through the phony dialectic. And I think even the creation institutes and stuff like that are all
they're terrible at debate. They don't know how to do it. It's like none of these people on either side actually know basic fallacies. I mean, we learned this in Philosophy 101, so I don't know how they missed this. Maybe they just never took any philosophy classes. But even at the state school I was at, we learned the basic fallacies in Philosophy 101. I mean, come on. Mm-hmm. So, just no conception of basic fallacies on either side? Come on. Now, that I agree with totally. One of the informal fallacies is poisoning the well. That's where you weight the discussion from the beginning by kind of making your opponent look bad. What I think is that all of those debates themselves poison the well, period. So exactly what you're saying, I agree with. It's contrived. It is contrived, and it's poisoning the well in the debate itself for that topic in the period, or for that topic in the future period. So it can never be debated in any real sense based on questioning the actual assumptions that the so-called scientific atheistic types have. Challenging them where it hurts, that can't be done. It can only be done in this ridiculous throw a scientific figure back and forth. I've got 20 studies that show that the earthworm shows some evidence of possible design. How do you answer that, Mr. Dawkins? Well, I've got 20 studies that show that the earthworm had to have evolved from an amoeba, blah, 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 blah. And so they just spit this bullshit back and forth without, I mean, it's the worst stuff ever. I can't watch it because it's not a real debate.
Yeah, I watch some debates. I like Stephen Meyer. I think he brings up some really good points. And, Michael Behe, David Berlinski, he brings up some really good points. I'm not negating that good points are made on the side of design and all that. I'm just saying that nobody ever questions the philosophical presuppositions of the scientific crowd, and that's where you need to get them. That's where they will melt. I'm telling you. Yeah, or the unexamined premise of the what establishes authority in the academic realms.
Yes.
That goes unchallenged. With you talking about these creationists or intelligent design proponents and stuff like too, they have a vested interest in keeping it propped up because they don't want to attack from that angle.
Right.
So that they have to leave that off out of bounds. And you have anybody that's going to have a PhD in front of their name is just immediately from certain standpoints, if they have direct ties to academia for their livelihood, is going to be compromised.
Oh yeah, it's a complete control mechanism. There was even, I'm not saying it's that great of a documentary, but it made this point. Expelled by the Ben Stein documentary, where it was just examining how any professor that questions the neo-Darwinian thesis is immediately fired and blackballed.
Oh yeah, but they swear up and down that they don't do that.
Right.
But but then that's another form of kind of begging the question of what establishes them at authority to begin with, where you'd want to be a part of their club. You know what I mean?
Well, that's why I quit academia when I got into the grad level of it, and I realized I was young when I started. I was 19, 20 when I went to college, and I was working full time for most of that time, so that's why it took me a long time to get to grad school. But by the time I got there, after being at the university for 8 or 10 years off and on, I was just sickened because, when you're 19, 20, you don't realize it's as controlled as it is. You think you're still idealistic at 19 or 20, and you think, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to teach philosophy at UK or somewhere, and it's going to be, I'm really going to change things. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to fight no. That's not how it works, bro.
No. So you've seen it from the inside, and
if you don't go along with all of it, then you're blackballed. You're not going to get a position, and that's why all the universities all teach the same thing. That's why they all teach gender studies, Marxist studies, neo-Darwinian studies across the board, right? So you go take a Shakespeare class, what you're going to get is communism in Shakespeare. I'm not kidding. I actually had a Marxist Shakespeare professor, and we're sitting here reading Shakespeare, and I'm like, fuck, does this have to do with Marxism? That's hundreds of years later. I mean, come on. But see, everything has to be revised and reread in that way.
And then, does anybody question why? Because I had this discussion with my cousin. He was going through finishing off his degree and all that, and I started asking him questions. This has been a while ago. And it's like, why are all these universities like a Marxist ideology? Why do they flog that continually? And why isn't that really subversive to the established order? Does that make any sense to you? It's like, I don't know if he really put any much thought into it, but don't people that get into these universities, don't they question that? Isn't that nonsensical kind of on its face? That's so entrenched in the university system?
You would think. But everyone is so controlled by their fiat money paycheck, and that's all they care about. So how can I get my fiat? I've put $50,000, $80,000 into getting my undergrad and grad school education, and so I've invested years into this, tens of thousands of dollars. So my future hangs on me getting a position in, if you're in academia, in some future university setting where I'm going to make $30,000 a year, right?
Right.
And I've got you're in bondage to debt and fiat money. That's how it works. So you're all that debt. You go along or you're out of here, buddy. Go enjoy your $10 an hour job to pay off your $100,000 debt.
And what you're describing there, that's common throughout all every institution that I've ever been involved in. Like I did 6 years in the Navy. I've worked different corporations and stuff, and without exception, there's always politics that are at play.
Well, yeah.
Internally in the organization, it's part of a corporate culture that gets established through the perceived hierarchy that's that's intrinsic in that organization. It's like and people know. I mean, people with any kind of life experience understands that as a fact of life. But somehow or another, this science community that's supposedly exists is exempt from all that.
Yes, academia and science are the special. That's because that's the new priest class. That's the new religion of our day. That's the enlightenment, lifting up of the new revelation, the new dawn. Mm-hmm. The new Atlantis is the scientific establishment of academia. And I have just nothing but utter contempt for I can't stand academics. The only ones that I like are the ones that leave it, reject it, and talk about how bad it is. So, and it is that bad. I've had people criticize me before for speaking that harshly about it, but it's a topic I feel very, very strong on from my own personal experiences with that so-called culture, and really, right. all the universities are complete brainwashing. The cathedrals of the new state religion, right. And brainwashing apparatus. Now, another example of what you're talking about with this uniformity. Look at the curriculum. Now, if the private schools and the state schools, we have this old idea of there being these elite schools, right? And in a certain sense, that's true, Harvard and Ivy League and all that stuff. And then supposedly, step down from that, you've got the state schools, universities. And then a step down from that, you've got your community colleges or whatever. Why, if that's true, and I think it used to be in some general sense, if that's still true, why do they all have a standardized curriculum? You would think that places like MIT or something like that would have a higher level curricula. Now, perhaps in their technology departments they do. I don't doubt that. But, for example, I saw an article last year that was talking about Harvard graduates. And it polled the Harvard graduating class, and I think it was 80% of the Harvard graduating class was completely on board with global warming. Right? So here, this is supposed to be the smartest kids. Right?
Right. Yeah.
Their graduating class, though, is not smart enough to figure out that is a scam. Well, now, wait a minute. What about university schools? Right, not the Ivy Leagues, but kind of your average state university. Well, now, wait a minute. They're all teaching the same thing. So what I'm getting at is just that it's actually the professors have to get what they want to teach approved by the school board. Mm-hmm. The school board is all the donors and these bureaucrats and these wealthy locals that have money invested into the university for boondoggles and making scam money,
right?
Which is a thing that nobody ever talks about either. And then above them is the federal government's mandates for what has to be part of the curriculum. So if we lived in a situation where we actually had free thought, which is what this is all operating under the ruse of, right? Open inquiry, right? That was like emblazoned upon my university's banners, right? Open inquiry, free all this baloney. Well, don't you think that professors and different academics and educators would be experimenting and trying different types of educational techniques? Don't you think they would implement different types of approaches to topics and questions?
I would think so.
Wouldn't you think? Yeah. Right. No. But why is it all uniform? So I would compare MIT courses that, for example, MIT would offer some film media classes, for example. I compared that curricula with my film media classes at my university. They're exactly the same. Mm-hmm. Subjects, books, everything. A lot of the textbooks that I used in my upper graduate philosophy, they were MIT text, standard MIT text. So, in other words, all I'm saying is that, we all know about kind of the Charlotte Iserbyt stuff and her talking about the control of education and all that stuff. Not only is that true, it's even deeper than that, because it's completely not an open inquiry, free thought, creative education approach at all as it's proposed. It's the 100% opposite. It's all controlled by the donors and the federal government's mandates for education. And the standardized curriculum itself is proof that it's all a complete scam.
Yeah, you see, there's a direct parallel to that in religious denominations, and what you're describing there, it just brought to mind. I was a member of the Church of Christ for a long time, and then it was purported to be. Each church is independent, and that's the biblical order that God set up, from the pattern found in the Bible, and there is no set dogma other than the Bible itself, right? That's the pretext, but in actuality, you start to question, and then you get into discussions, and then eventually you come to find out that so there is an approved set of biblical commentaries that members of the church are persuaded to refer to, and also like newsletters and stuff that are published that keeps all the quote-unquote churches of Christ on the same, within the same framework, and so that every all the doctrine and everything is consistent, and everybody's unified, and and then my question would be like, okay, what's wrong? Can't we just use the Bible? I thought we were just supposed to use the Bible, but apparently we don't. So that, and the same thing with academia. So and what that does, it establishes. It's persuasive by way of creating this sort of what is it? What would be social? Social proof, where everybody's on the.
So it allows for exclusion. It's a power struggle, power structure thing where you can then exclude the people who aren't going to go along, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm being from the South. The Church of Christ are big here, so I'm familiar with it. I've attended Church of Christ services many years ago in the past, just kind of checking out when I started getting into theology and whatnot. I checked out a bunch of different churches and wanted to see what was going on. So I went to a Church of Christ for about 6 months, I think, maybe a year. So I know exactly what you're talking about. But I was raised nominally Southern Baptist, so I saw the exact same thing there. I mean, for example, it's nowhere written that you can't drink alcohol, but for some reason the Southern Baptists have this unspoken taboo that you shouldn't drink.
Yeah, I've had the same discussions.
Right,
same
it's completely silly,
right?
Ridiculous legalism. But this is just an unspoken taboo, and I think it's even the Southern Baptists have that thing called the faith in, I forget their old document that's not actually a creed, but it operates like a creed, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Whatever their piece of paper creed's called, but what that is, I think, is just a manifestation of how humans operate. So Baptists would talk about how they don't believe in tradition, right? Well, every Baptist church you go into sings the same dumb hymns, right?
Right. Exactly.
Just as I am without one plea.
Yep. We have the same songbook. Yeah.
Yeah, and the services are all in the same order. You know exactly what the preacher's going to do. You know his whole spiel. You know he's going to do his dumb altar call. So it's all
very formulaic. Yeah.
It's formulaic. It's a tradition, even though it's based on there not being a tradition. So ultimately, it's completely ridiculous. It's just a manifestation of how humans operate. Humans like tradition. They like ritual. They like patterns. They like ceremony. So it's all based on a farce of saying that that's not what it is.
Yeah, and the new Church of Scientism has all the trappings of the religion. You see I'll send you this article. So yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson again, you know, and then he's got this new show, and then he goes into the future Mars missions and all that, and yeah. And
by the way, there's Mars. I think 2 movies coming out like relatively soon based on Mars mission-y stuff.
Yeah, the Martian.
Yes,
is one of them. I don't know the other one.
The other one I think is, it may not be a Mars thing. I'm not sure, but it was some astronaut. Something like the Argonaut or some ship that's on some great space journey. I don't know. It's the same old stuff we see a million times in Hollywood. But you hit on a good insight. I loved your Mars NASA photo of the giant squid shooting what was it, a ground squirrel?
Oh yeah. Both are real.
That was awesome, right? And you immediately look at that Mars thing, and right away when you type it in, what comes up is James Cameron to help film the next Mars mission.
Oh yeah. Well, no, Jay. He's a camera boy now. He's just a camera tech.
Yeah, right.
He goes from Hollywood, like the top Hollywood director.
Yeah, he's made billions of dollars, by the way.
Yeah, make billions of dollars off creating illusions, and now he's going to scrap all that and go be like a camera tech, a technical advisor on how to operate a camera. Like NASA doesn't know how to use their own cameras. I don't know, man. I did a phone call to the Mike Cabbage, the public relations guy at NASA. There's a couple of those on the calls.
Those were funny. I really like the geoengineering guy who said basically over the course of that conversation, yeah, there's Air Force documents on atmospheric geoengineering spraying, but I'm not going to talk to you about this because, yes, it's real, but it's never used. It's not real.
Oh, yeah. No, they never use it. Of course not. Well, no, not without telling everybody, you know.
I'm not going to have this conversation with you. This is conspiracy theory.
Right, it's conspiracy theory, yeah. It's like, yeah, it is real, it is confirmed, but it's conspiracy theory. But then he says, yeah, the condensation trails do create clouds, yeah, but clouds don't affect weather. And okay. Oh, man.
And I hate, by the way, how these scientific academic types and the public figure types act like they're not public figures that are supposed to answer questions. They get mad when you act like they're beyond that. Like, how dare you ask me, like that, how dare you ask me these questions? You're a public fucking figure, dude.
Right.
You're supposed to be asked questions. You're not immune. You're not, some nobleman who rides around, on top of a chariot that we can't touch you or talk to you.
I know, it's absolutely preposterous. And, totally out of line with what they're purported to be, public service, yeah. Yeah, it's just it amazes me how people could be so what's the word? It's the double bind where I have two absolutely contradictory thoughts in my head right now. And, okay, wait, let me switch over. Okay, but boom, I'm on this side. And then you see the line of questioning continues, and then it goes, boop, I go over to this other side. And
Exactly.
It's like, holy crap. Is this like a automaton? Is this an AI? What the hell am I talking to here on the, on these calls with these bureaucrats? It's outlandish, It's like, they all... What I'm getting at is they all have the really similar approach.
Yes, I think that is the most striking and frightful aspect of all this. People want to be afraid of the bullshit, ISIS, Ebola, all this fake crap. No, the scary thing is the ability of humans to buy into complete lies and contradictions within 2 sentences.
Oh,
that's the actually scary part.
Oh yeah, I've said that before too. Those people are the ones that scare me. I mean, my goodness, it's like what couldn't be got over on the mass mind or whatever. It's like you just gotta brace for shock or whatever. I mean, for what may be coming around the corner is because it's like, man, does anything go? I mean, is that where we're at?
Yeah, I thought it was great too. That same principle came out in the observatory discussion over Mythbusters and all that stuff. I watched all that and listened to all that. That was really fascinating too. And we saw the same pattern with that dude too, where he's like, well, yeah, you can't, but, well, yeah, of course you can, but it's the context. You gotta look at the context of what's said, and you can't, but you can, but you can't.
I know. I don't know. It's like, okay, well, as pedantic as scientists typically are normally, it was surprising to me that he would kind of just brush that off as, that's just some inconsequential technical peculiarity that doesn't matter, it doesn't factor into any of this. And I said, no, it absolutely does, because the point is that the way that it was being presented is like, there's just no way you're going to bounce the laser off the moon without the reflector. And that was just unequivocal. That was just emphatic. And then, then it turns out that you can. But no, you can't. And then no, we're worried about accuracy. And it's like, okay, fine, it's accuracy. Why did you say that in the first place? Well, no, we can't because people don't understand it. It's like, I understand it. I'm not a fucking physicist.
If you're worried about accuracy, then why are you brushing this off as inconsequential?
Exactly. So no, that's a really good point. Yeah. Yeah. That would be if that's really what you're concerned with, then definitely, you would lead with that, wouldn't you? But no, it's obviously that it has more propagandistic effect.
Yes.
If you present it that way. That was my bone of contention. And I don't care if there's a reflector on the moon. It doesn't make a damn. That doesn't mean that Apollo put it there. If there is one there. I don't even know if there is one there. If there is or isn't one there, that's not the point.
Well, maybe there's natural metals on the moon. I mean, who knows? I mean, we don't know, right?
So, or if the moon is reflective, maybe there's like a really good smooth spot they could fire, bounce and ricochet lasers or whatever they want to off of it. Just be mindful of the bipedal beavers and the moon men that live there, and
just don't shine your reflector in their eyes when they're scurrying about,
or just do it in the off season when the ice skating ring is closed.
The bat people on the
bat people ice skating. Oh man!
Now, on that topic, I watched an interesting movie this week that I did an analysis of. You'll find this piece of the film relevant, and that is this film American Ultra. Now, I did touch on some of the possibilities of the MK Ultra project and all that, just because it was so obvious in the title of the film. But it is worth seeing because there is another aspect to the film that I don't think anyone caught that I did try to highlight. And that is the fact that the film actually includes a significant piece of the plot relating to fake news. So without giving the whole plot away, basically this kid is activated as an MK Ultra program assassin type person in this small town, and he comes to find out that his whole reality is completely false, all a construct. Jesse Eisenberg is playing the character, and during the ensuing chaos in the town, the CIA has to come in and spin the story. So what they do is, while they're sending in a team of psychotic hitmen to take out the guy, the teen, they construct a completely fake outbreak scenario that is a mix of Ebola and AIDS.
Oh, okay.
So they start running news broadcasts 24/7 about the outbreak and quarantine of this city. And there's a really quick shot of a bunch of actors in hazmat suits walking around looking ridiculous, spraying things and investigating and detecting things. All right. And because Mike, the kid, Jesse Eisenberg, he actually knows what's going on, he goes and visits his friend, who's a drug dealer, John Leguizamo. As soon as he gets there, John Leguizamo freaks out, and he's like, "The monkey disease, man! The fuck are you doing walking around without a gas mask on? You're gonna get the fucking monkey disease." And he's like, "There's no monkey disease. Why do you believe what's on the TV?" And it's a poignant scene. And he's like,
"Oh, well, yeah."
And John Leguizamo's like, "Man, they done showed you, man. You've been fucking monkeys, man. You." So the news ran the story that Mike, the kid, was actually caused this outbreak by screwing monkeys, AIDS, Ebola, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And the CIA is running with FEMA, with actors.
Yeah.
These staged scenes of an outbreak.
So they do that so they can put out an APB on him and capture him, right?
Yep.
No, the revelation, the method, there's several films out there with that one that came to mind when you brought that up was that one Die Hard movie where they blow up the White House. And then Bruce Willis goes, run, oh, we gotta save lives. And then he gets there and it's like, it's still there. It's like, oh, didn't I just see that on TV?
Wait a minute. Which Bruce Willis movie is this?
Die Hard 12 or I don't know. Die Hard 4? I don't know. I forget how many there was. I think there's 4, right? I think it may be the most recent one.
5, I think.
5.
Die Hard, Live Free or Die Hard is the one where it's the NSA backdoor that's causing all this terror and cyber shutdowns.
Yeah.
Is it that one or the one?
Yeah, it's about these hackers and they hack into the grid and they start shutting shit down. And
now see, I had forgotten that scene that you're talking about. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then they show it on TV because they can hijack the signals. And then they show the White House being blown up, and then it's like, oh my God, the White House is blown up. And then they run over there and they look at it and say, this birds are chirping.
Oh man, I'm going to have to do an analysis of Live Free or Die Hard. I've had it on my list to do for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, see, I forget about this stuff, and I don't talk about it. And then we get to talking, and we have these free-form discussions, and then all this shit starts.
And we're shown this shit constantly in movies. That's what's so mind-blowing is that.
Oh, I know.
We're shown this shit constant, right? I mean, classic example, Running Man. I always bring that one up. That they create the whole fake news story of him being killed, and he's still running around. It's all CGI. Wag the dog, CGI, fake war in Albania, and just covers. By the way, Close Encounters has the same theme of the CIA military coming in.
Yep.
And to cover up the alien, which all alien stuff's bullcrap, but to cover that up, there's an insight where they create the fake pandemic.
Yeah, and they lay a bunch of dead sheep around.
They lay dead sheep and cattle down. Right?
Yeah. It's like, proof. Here you go, proof. It's happening, Which, I mean, that's pretty good evidence that shit's going down, but you look around, and all you see is like dead livestock, So, but yeah, see, even that can be faked.
It was in Snowpiercer, too, in regard to the fake environmental crisis. Originally they were spraying the sky at the beginning of the film, and that does result in the Ice Age. But inside the train, Wilford has constructed the mythology that nobody can step outside of the train because you'll immediately freeze and life is dead.
Uh-huh.
So he created a whole religious mythology for everybody living inside that enclosed structure of the train, and then when the train crashes, they walk outside and they see a polar bear. So the idea that you could not walk outside was just completely a concocted mythology. There's nothing true about it at all.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting film. I saw that one. Yeah, that's kind of mind-bending and kind of tripped out, too. That's, well, did you ever see, we talked about this before, where it's one of the Iron Man series?
Yes, I've got a couple articles on the actor, Ben Kingsley, playing the Mandarin.
Right.
And he's just this completely concocted Bin Laden figure, yes.
Yeah, he's just like Bin Laden. And then, but re-examine that and look at those snippets where it's flashing to where it's purported to be a terrorist released video.
Yes, ISIS, right.
Yeah, and take that and, put it side by side with the shit they're pumping out now with ISIS. And it's almost verbatim. Yeah,
I've got, I think, 2 articles comparing Iron Man 3 and ISIS. So if listeners interested, they can check that out. But I think you and I honestly did that independently, because when I heard you and John mention it recently on a talk, I went to your YouTube channel and I found that you guys had done a video on it too.
Yeah,
so I thought that was awesome.
I forget where I ran across it. I saw the first Iron Man, and as far as movies go, I'm not a real big movie buff, but I thought that one was pretty well put together. As far as just for movie's sake,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of looked into the other ones to see if maybe they'd be worth looking at too, and maybe that's where I ended up running. I was like, what the hell? I mean, this is just totally in your face, man. I couldn't get over it. Just how totally blatant in your face it was.
IMAX, and I wasn't expecting that. Now, I think I'd seen the trailer, and I don't remember immediately thinking, holy shit, that's Bin Laden. I might have, I don't even remember, but I remember sitting in the theater when it premiered, and I'm like, what the fuck? This is completely showing you what Bin Laden and ISIS are.
Yeah. And, it talks about him, how he sourced them. He went, got him from an acting troupe or something. And said, he's good enough, and then used him. And, man, I mean, there's a lot of that out there. Some really, in these major releases, like Star Wars. I remember seeing that. My brother came down to visit, so, went to go see a movie, and that movie was out. And I remember sitting there watching, I said, holy crap, this is Bin Laden in his cave, and they're showing the whole thing, the whole scenario with the emperor, to the empire and being in control of the terrorist and doing all this stuff. And I was like, oh, man, that's just... And see, that was all... I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong on this, that was already... had to have been in production, or the script had to have been already completed for that particular Star Wars movie before... 9/11, maybe?
I would think so. Most of these films are... The scripts are written way ahead of time, so yeah.
Yeah, the scripts are written way ahead of time, and there are even, I think, adaptations of books, too, so I don't know, but there may be a Star Wars... Because I think there's just shit tons of Star Wars books, because that was like just an ongoing, endless saga of... Star Wars stories that was going on for a while, just mainly in literature before it started being adapted into film. And so that'd be an interesting investigation to see if that plot line is in one of those old books from the 70s.
Oh, yeah, it would be. Now, there was also another one nobody's talked about much, is there's a dumb Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that I've got it, but the name escapes me off the top of my head at the moment. But there's one of those stupid action movies with Schwarzenegger. They had to halt it as it was because the plot was too similar to what happened at 9/11. And so I'm trying to remember exactly what went down. They either delayed the release until they thought people were over the trauma, or they altered the script totally. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but it's one of those awful ones like Collateral Damage or something of that title. Right around the time of Sixth Day and True Lies, and it's something to this effect.
Well, it was a major Hollywood release.
It is. It's one of those late 90s, 2000 Schwarzenegger. Give me a second here. I could think of it.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Shit. With Jamie Lee Curtis? That one?
I don't think it is. Shit, I could find it here in a second.
Yeah, well, you're looking for that. There's a television series that's fairly new on the scene, and some cable network has put it out, and it's called Mr. Robot, and I've never heard of it before. And the same thing with that. So they're going to have an episode with reporters getting shot live on TV, and that was scheduled to come out right at the same time that the...
Yes, I saw you guys post on that. I think, didn't you guys put a post on that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I saw that.
What that does, by doing that, so they schedule it and they time it and they say, oh, look what happened. It's so close, and it's just, absolute coincidence, of course. At the same time, they could draw attention to it and make promotion for it, so people will be sure and go back and look at it. Because otherwise, like, I never heard of that series, and probably like most other people haven't. But, a lot more people will now that they've heard, oh, the plot line is just like what really happened. Oh, that's so very interesting. Maybe I ought to check the show out. So there's the hey, look at this aspect to it that is built into, setting it up to come out and then announcing, putting out into the news cycle that, oh, look at this, we had to, out of respect for the victims, we had to, not release this when it was due to come out, and then, in the process, it's just advertising for and promotion for the series or movie
right.
or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, that is an interesting angle that could be used in that way.
But no, not. I'm not saying to sell tickets or whatever. I'm saying as additional propaganda servicing that the mainstream media, or the Hollywood and film runs in parallel to the so-called true events. They're coordinated, is what I'm trying to say. And
yes.
Yeah, and they feed off of each other. And so, just like the 9/11 movies that come out after 9/11, it fills in the blanks of the whole narrative for you in Hollywood style, because that's where people get their version of reality from Hollywood. So of course they have to come out with 9/11 themed movies, that
right,
like Flight 93.
So check this out. Oh, right, which is awful movie.
I never saw it, but I'll take your word for it.
Oh, I saw the trailer, so I was.
Oh, okay.
Now check this. No, wait. There's Flight 93. I did see in the theater with my girlfriend, and we almost left because it was just so bad. We were making fun of it. And then there's another one called, I think, World Trade with Nick Cage where he's firing or something. So the movie is Collateral Damage. Now, it came out in 2002, but listen to what it says. The September 11, 2001 attacks affected the release and editing of this film. The original trailer was scrapped because it showed a major bomb attack in the U.S. The film was originally scheduled to be released October 5th, 2001, but was postponed due to the terror attacks of 9/11 until February 8, 2002. Collateral Damage was also supposed to include Sofia Vergara in the role of a hijacker. However, the hijack scene was cut. So she was going to hijack the plane, bomb terror attacks. The movie is really bad, by the way. It's hard to watch. It was also a box office failure. But, I don't know. It makes you wonder why they didn't just release that with the 9/11 style plot to it. But yeah, I think you're right. I agree with you that it can also be coordinated to happen concurrently, or maybe sometimes they feel they can get more traction out of it if they release it post-event. Who knows?
No, I think it is. There's so many examples with this. There's like even back to Columbine, and then the Matrix films come out, and then the Basketball Diaries come out, and they both feature the trench coat with shooting.
Yes.
And obviously, all that was in the can way before Columbine. So
that's a good point, right?
Yeah. So you might say that they were influenced from those movies, but no, there's already stuff that establishes that there's this quote unquote trench coat mafia before even the release of the Matrix. So there's an example of that where. Maybe not direct parallels, but the one with the Basketball Diaries is a school shooting with a guy in the shotgun and a trench coat. So yeah, you get a direct parallel there. And
another film along those lines that was a precursor to that point is Heathers, where Christian Slater is playing this rebellious, dark trench coat mafia teen. Now, this was late 80s with Winona Ryder,
okay.
And he ends up seducing her. He's like the total ultimate high school rebel kid. He seduces her. She gets into his suicide cult idea, and there's alternate endings for that film, if I recall. And I'm trying to remember. He either shoots it up or blows up the school. I think he blows up the school. Yeah. And he may shoot it up too, but I have to read the plot real quick. It's been years since I've watched it. But that was late 80s, so that kind of set the stage too for the school attack phenomenon. And in the plot, we learn, I believe, that his dad was a black ops bomb specialist. And when you watch the scenes with him interacting with his father, you'll see Masonic imagery. That much I remember.
Right, and then there's the series 24 that came out, the television series.
Right.
And so yeah, that was obviously all prepared beforehand to be released, coordinated with 9/11. And then, so that's running, and it's a top popular television series. At the same time, all these torture revelations or stuff are coming out, see? So that they can give you here's what the government's doing, and then the fiction is giving you the filling in the blanks for you of the narrative where, Jack Bauer had to, cut the guy's thumb off to get the information out. I mean, he needed to save the school bus for full of kids getting blown up. So, so it's just this coordination going on that where Hollywood comes in and fills in the gaps in the narrative that don't get communicated, the backstory that doesn't get communicated through the news release. So I'm sure there's going to be, there's this one. The Mr. Robot series episode that has the reporters getting shot, and then they're going to draw your attention to that, and then you go look at it, and then you get fed some other propaganda that will shape your views on shootings and that sort of thing. I think that's how this stuff works.
I think you're right. There is, by the way, as I check, in the plot to Heathers, he does involve himself in a school shooting, but what he does is he goes and he shoots people with blanks just to freak them out before he blows the school up. So yeah.
Huh. Yeah, it's too many examples to be coincidence. I know that. I know that's absolutely a coordinated effort.
It's way too many examples I mean, they just pop out all the time too. I mean, I'm sure there's dozens, maybe hundreds that we haven't even noticed yet. I mean, I am a film buff, and so I constantly notice these things, and I'm just like, holy crap.
Yeah, numerous examples, and
there's just no way that could be coincidental. I mean, just on a purely statistical standpoint, there's no way that could all be coincidental.
No, it's absolutely impossible. You know, we were talking about that not too long ago with the Gifford shooting, and they actually had an episode of Grey's Anatomy that's a real popular. Yeah, just right before it happened, right before the thing, they had the whole scenario of a shooting in a college, and then the gal gets half her head blown off, just like Gifford's did, and her life gets saved by some miracle procedure, and that's really descriptive of what they said they had to do to Gifford's, and it's like, seriously? I mean,
yeah, and I did listen to that talk that you guys did. I had forgotten the whole news blast about the experimental naval procedure of freezing the head, or I had forgotten all that, but that was in the news. Yes, so it's like goes into sci-fi land or something, like, cryogenics and stuff. I mean, what in the world?
Yeah, we had that interview with Stephanie Sledge, and she had dug up all kinds of stuff related to that was pretty bizarre. But I was thinking, how does that really fit into... Because I know Giffords I know she's faking it, and I know she didn't get shot. I'm 100% on that. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. So, no, they didn't have to save her life or anything like that. But still, nonetheless, I mean, these things are multifaceted where, there may be an angle to this that where some kind of arcane medical procedure is being kind of hitching its wagon onto the whole story,
Well, that's an interesting question, that right there. Why the really bizarre stuff? I mean, I understand the trauma. We know why there would be the trauma. Is it just added pizzazz to the stories? I mean, like we got this Virginia Tech, or not Virginia Tech, the Virginia, well, that one too, but the recent Virginia news shooting. I mean, that's got so much just weirdness to it. This guy writes a manifesto. He's a black, gay, former, I don't know, he's a gay escort type guy or something.
That's some old story that is the guy brought that out, and I think that video that I got posted on the blog he goes into that. It is an old book that got turned into a play, and it has the same scenario, and and somehow it's tied into Los Miserables or whatever, and the actor guy that is...
Allison Parker's dad.
Yes, yeah.
We covered that character on Sunday Wire. Now, I think it also bears parallels to the Gus Van Sant's To Die For, which is the film about the character of Pamela Smart, who supposedly killed her husband as she was trying to make her name in media. So, but now in Van Sant's film version, which is a dark satire, Nicole Kidman plays the role of a local weather girl who is trying everything she can to get to the top of the media food chain. And she decides that in a natural born killer style way, the fastest way to the top of the media food chain is some sort of killing. So she kills her husband in the plot. And this actually makes her a big media star. Now, in the case of this so-called Virginia nonsense, the fake boyfriend of Allison Parker spent 2 days straight doing media interviews with his photo album of their 6-month anniversary and their white hot relationship, and we were going to be betrothed as a power couple. Right, which was just the most ridiculous, bizarre.
I know.
While he's up there giggling,
it's just, it's totally outrageous.
So, the weirdness factor is something that I still
listen to
maybe
this.
It's tabloidy. I don't know.
This is off the... Okay, I got this posted at hoaxbusterscall.com. This, what's the title of this? It's from Dutch Sense. Virginia TV shooting, hoax actor Andy Parker, Les Miserables, The Merchant of Kellogg. That's what I was trying to remember.
Yes.
As it turns out, this is down in the description, as it turns out, the whole Parker family is a troupe of actors. Andy Parker is a TV stage actor. Also, his wife is an actor, their son is an actor, and of course, their former, daughter is Allison Parker, was an actor, / WDBJ reporter who was supposedly shot on live TV by supposed quote-unquote gunman, Vester Lee Flanagan II, who was also an actor. Vester Flanagan, the shooter, went by Bryce Williams as a media stage name. He also did former acting before getting in the news media. In an odd twist of fate, I discovered that Sylvester Flanagan was the name of a fictional character in a book from 1894 called The Merchant of Kellogg, where the character Mr. Flanagan is part of a plot to kill 3 people in order to influence a vote.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So you wonder where they get this stuff. It's like, I guess
It's scripts,
brush up
and
on
they don't even write new scripts. They just find some.
Yeah.
Grab some tabloid pulp fiction novel from the 50s or something, or some 1800s play, and just borrow it and just rip it right out.
It's like, oh, this sounds good. It's like, oh, what are you reading, Bob? Oh, yeah, you ever heard of this book? It's like, what's that? And it's, oh, it's about this, and that. It's like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do that, this week for everybody. It's,
the Daily Shooter, right? Yeah. It's maybe the neo-Nazi shooter narrative is getting old, so they throw in something with a little more pizzazz every now and then.
Yeah, the gay, ambiguously gay boyfriend, and then the gay shooter, and then of course it's going to open up all kinds of speculation about, were they, tabloidism and endless speculations and stuff to keep you busy, analyzing it and trying to pick it apart, and then all of that effectively conceals the fact that the whole thing is fucking fake.
Yep.
Just like JFK, I think that was kind of a prototype for a lot of this stuff. It was like one, because it's the first televised dramatization hoax event, and they really pushed it over the top with the side narratives to keep people busy for, I guess, the next century and a half. I don't know.
Well, if we have a hard time believing that, stop for a minute. I think I mentioned this to you guys before, but so it won't be new to you. But listeners, stop for a minute and think about this. Ronald Reagan. What was he? But before he became president, what was he?
You mean before he was best president ever lived? Actor.
There you go. Now, Fidel Castro. Look up Fidel's IMDb. Have you ever done that?
No.
Yep, and you will see the films that he appeared in. Before, I'm not joking. He has his own IMDb. Now, when you go read it, you'll see the few films. I think he had minor roles, but still. Now, Fidel, before he became the face of the Revolution, was also a pitcher. He tried out for the LA Dodgers. And then he had some minor film roles, and then behold, he becomes the face of the revolution.
It says here he starred with co-star Saddam Hussein in an early adaptation of a book that was later made into the Bad Boys series of. So they were the original Bad Boys. That was a film from the 1940s. It says.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't make that up.
Well, I was pulling up Fidel's IMDb. I don't remember what his the Bad Boys. Fidel plays Martin, and who plays Will Smith, right? Martin. Let's see what Fidel's roles he's known for. Let's see, he's been in a bunch of movies. Let's see, going back to the old days.
Did not know that.
Holy shit! I can't even. He's actually got a pretty big. Now a lot of them are Cuban films, but you can go back to old stuff where it's not Cuban films. Fidel Castro is supposedly in an X-Files episode. Holy cow.
No, dude.
I'm not joking. You pull up, do it. I'm telling you, man, pull up the IMDb.
Oh, you gotta be shitting me, man. Wait a minute.
Oh, let's see. Let's see what his roles are. I am not kidding you. Oh, no. Okay. That's people playing him. I apologize. However, if you pull up under actors, he is in Holiday in Mexico, in 1946 film. He's in Easy to Wed with Lucille Ball, 1946 film. He's in some weird film I can't pronounce. Array. Yeah, so his IMDb is considerably shorter in terms of his actual acting roles, but even still, that's pretty telling.
Fidel Alejandro Castro Ruz.
Mm-hmm.
That's his real name, Fidel Castro.
That's him, yeah, because I came across this in a book that was talking about what he did when he was younger, and he wanted to be in Hollywood. He wanted to be an actor, and then he tried out for the LA Dodgers as a pitcher, and none of that worked out, so he became the face of the revolution.
He tried out for the role of a dictator of Cuba.
Exactly.
And apparently got it, yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, see, so can we extrapolate out and say maybe like Kim Jong-il maybe has... Yeah. I know he's a fan of Hollywood, and he's a real fan of celebrity.
Oh, nobody, I'm not bragging, but I'm saying you got to see those North Korean space program pictures. They're hilarious. So if you Google Jay's Analysis, North Korean photos, space program or something like that, you'll get that article. It's so hilarious. And I think it's a completely fake state. It's a complete puppet state. Mm-hmm. It's all fake. I mean, there's a real place. I'm not saying that it's not. You know what I mean? They don't have a nuke program. They're not they're not testing nukes and about to nuke the West and Kentucky, like was in the news, or Tennessee. It was Texas. It was in the news last year that you remember Kim Jong-un was threatening to nuke Texas.
Yeah, dare you nuke Texas? I double dare you. Man, that's too close to Oklahoma. Fuck that. No, actor. Well, we talked about this with Saddam Hussein being like the single largest private shareholder in General Motors stock. Marcus Allen brought that up when we used to do calls.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that's an interesting tidbit.
Oh, that reminds me. Have you seen the Roman Polanski film Ghost Writer?
No.
That one is worth watching too, because what he reveals in that is Ewan McGregor plays the part of a journalist who's writing a biography of Tony Blair. So in the film, Pierce Brosnan is more or less playing the Tony Blair character. And I won't spoil it, but make a long story short, Tony Blair is not who Ewan McGregor thinks he is. As he's studying this person and writing this biography for him, he comes to find out that the Tony Blair character was recruited at Oxford as an actor. by the CIA.
Perfect for the role as president, because as I keep reiterating over and over, they are script readers, obviously, man. I mean, I don't know how more obvious can be.
And same with these news people too.
Well, who's going to be better adapted to that other than an actor?
Right.
And Obama's got. It came out that he was tutored under a Shakespearean
Harry Lennox, right?
Harry Lennox, and then taught him how to affect his kind of Oxford demeanor and his taught him how to talk, how to walk. Here's how you do it. You want a little bit of the Harlem strut, but you don't want too much, and you want all of that.
All the same training, by the way, that's in the Bond novels. When Bond undergoes training, he learns all those same things, right?
I haven't really explored the Bond novels myself. I used to be
Well, it's in the movies too. It's in the movies too. So
he gets finishing school training, of course, right?
Right. And on the just like Kim Jong-un, it's been in mainstream news that he goes to all the same elite Swiss boarding schools with all the Western elites. So much for communism, right?
Right. Yeah, it's just amazing how all these ties, direct ties to actors, and then people that are put out in front of you to play a role of, oh, here's a bad guy and here's another bad guy over here, and they just so happen to look the role. Like Kim Jong-il looks like a total fucking creep.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's not going to look...
Kind of a repeat of the Mao, the ugly Mao look, yeah.
So he's typecast. And so it was like Dick Cheney is another prime example of a typecast villain with Bush. It's like... that's... And Rumsfeld.
Yeah, and Tony Blair looks like Alfred E. Newman. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like... Yeah, if you think about it from that perspective, how they're typecast for their specific roles. I mean, they really look the part. They're not only fit for the part in the way they carry themselves.
So Tony Blair's got to play the ugly, big-eared, screwed-up teeth Brit. Right.
And that's effective in, like, when, because I think there's an underappreciation for political cartooning. It's selling ideas and selling politics and all that. So,
that's the point.
So it may be that you brought this up, come to think of it, that may factor into it. Because, okay, we can't have this person be president because they're not descript enough in their appearance. And they're not going to be... We can't caricaturize this guy really effectively. So, we'll scrap him and let's get this other guy in here.
Well, you hear the common... people bantering about this idea of which they think is real intellectual. They'll say something like, well, so-and-so can't get elected because they don't have the right look. They don't have the right hair. Looks are very important in public election. And that's true, but not as deep in the sense of what they think.
Right.
Because what they actually probably want to do is to look at Fidel. I haven't seen, I think I've seen one picture of Fidel Castro when he was young. And he, when he was out in LA trying out for movies and for the Dodgers, he was trendy, jet set, slick hair, no beard guy, right? But then could we put a beard on this guy? And I think we could make this guy into a Latin American revolutionary.
Hey, try this beard on. Come in here. Hey, Alejandro, come here, man. Let's check out this. Let's see. Put on this beard. And
try this short-billed green hat here. See what the... Oh, yes.
That's it. Oh, wait. Here's a cigar.
Here's a cigar.
In your mouth. And
the Cuban cigar.
The Cuban cigar completes the picture, and Cuban dictator.
By the way, who's his good buddy?
Fidel's good buddy?
Yeah, do you know who it is? One of his... Well, I'm sure he's got a bunch, but one of his good buddies is... Shit, I went blank. Clark Griswold. What's his name? Fletch.
Oh, shit. Chevy Chase?
Chevy Chase is one of his good buds, yes.
He's actual friends with Fidel Castro.
Yeah. It's been mainstream reported. They hang out because Chevy says he's a big communist.
Oh, really? Yeah, didn't you? I always thought Chevy Chase was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's funny, but, come on.
Oh, yeah, and then again, too, how many people out there really take communism and stuff seriously? You know what I mean? Like, really seriously.
Yeah.
That purport to be hardcore communist, or what even, on second thought, what even does that mean, communist? Does even at this point, at 2015, whatever day this is, August 31st or whatever, on this day, does communism have any real definite meaning anymore?
No, not as a branded movement, because that's old school stuff. But they don't really have to even worry about that as a branded movement, because everybody already believes in the bullshit ideology automatically through the culture.
So what the ultimate goal of communism would be what?
Well, a lot of people who read it from a Marxist perspective will say, all right, well, let's look at Marx here, and he looks at these phases and stages of history, and he says you got the medieval feudalism, and then you got the big capitalism that emerges, and then you got then the proletariat revolution will happen, then you're going to have state communism, and then you're going to have the abolition of the state, and you're going to have the utopian society, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of people will take that Marxist look at history and say that that's the definite stages and process. I actually think that the real oligarchs look at this patterns of history and they say, all right, yeah, we had feudalism, and then we had capitalism come, and then we had communism, or excuse me, we had big industrialism, monopolistic capitalism. Let's take the Marxist communist socialist revolution and let's use that to engineer things into corporatism. And so corporatism is the result of Marxism, I believe, which most people would not, I don't think, go down that route. They think that communism, Marxism is supposed to be anti-corporate. I disagree. I think that it leads perfectly into corporatism because it was always a corporate scheme. It was a banker corporate scheme all along to privatize everybody else's crap. And that's all it is. And then once everything else is privatized, then you've got your totally top-down scientific fascist dictatorship.
Yeah, it's just like building two roads that go to the same destination. One is called communism, and one is called capitalism. That's the way I look at it. It's just a different road going to the same. And then America's traveling one way, and communist China is traveling. Yes. On another road, and we have a destination point up the road somewhere.
Yeah, I think all those ethnographies that the CIA does, where they study all these different people groups and they know everything about them, that's what World War I, II, and whatever's coming is all about. Let's try out Fabianism in England. Oh, that seems to work really good here. Let's try top-down Mao revolution in China. Oh, that worked okay. Oh, no, it's not working. Let's transition it into communism. So I think they try to test tube these different ideologies in different places. And I think the autocratic King Faoud, King Saud, King, Ibn whoever, well, that kind of works better over here in the Middle East. We'll use that autocracy there. The U.S., well, they need to have this idea of, Republican Democratic elections. We'll let them have that idea here. I think it's test tubes and it's trials and then ultimately, the world government doesn't have to be the more naive assumption on the part of conspiracy alternative media types is, there's going to be a 1984 takeover and it's just going to be this top-down control. No, it can actually be a bunch of different systems that are run at the top, all in tandem.
Right, and we have UN troops on the streets.
Right.
And then, here's something about that. Yeah, I remember being in the military years ago, and then my brother is in the military, and then so I noticed commonalities. Like, you'd see all these foreigners on the bases. And it's NATO. Oh yeah, NATO. Oh yeah. So the Italian guys, French guys or whatever, just traipsing around on the base and all that. And so what's that if not unified, NATO's and unified military force?
Why would you need some top-down power takeover coup when most people are already bought into a controlled system. It's already here. You don't need that.
Yeah, why would you need to bring in foreign troops when you can observe the behavior of our police and military right here and now, what the links they'll go to follow orders? It's like,
well, everybody already believes in a bunch of bullshit. So, I mean, they're already bought into it. So
yeah, just we're going through the process of standardizing it across the board. That's all that needs to take place. It's just like all the hoopla that was generated around a national ID card. Oh, we're going to have a national ID card. Oh, they're going to push it any day now.
Yeah, exactly right.
And it's like, you already have it. It's called your Social Security number.
Yep.
And they could affix or attach anything they want to, or it already exists. They can nationalize it. They can, once it's in a database, that's all that is necessitated is have an identifier for you, a number for you, and that's a done deal. And then everything after that is just whatever they want to do with it.
Chris, I want to warn you, this is Lindsey Williams. There's going to be an economic crash like you've never seen. It's going to pale in comparison to the 1920s and the stock market crash. It's coming. Listen, you need to be prepared. The elite they're already moving offshore. They've gone to other places like New Zealand. The elite are moving to Iceland. Unbelievable. Right, so...
And they release the nanobots to get the last scrap of gold before they jump ship.
Now, why? Now, I don't know. It's entirely possible there could be an economic crash. But what's funny is the general bullshit storyline is that martial law is coming after the economic. Why would you? The money system's already controlled.
Yeah, I know. The money system is already. It's already firmly entrenched. It's not going anywhere. So whatever they want to do with it at any point in time is a given. It's not. It's already here. The national ID is already here. The
total surveillance is already here.
Total surveillance is already here. It's been here. They've been doing this. And I've heard stuff too. And now I'm like more prone to believe this than ever. It's like they were tracking people back in the 50s by your heat signature. Figuring out where you're going and all that stuff. Now, how extensively that was implemented, I have no idea. But that's I've heard that.
Right.
You can give off a signature through your body heat, and it's only you have that specific signature, and they had some method of tracking and tracing everybody way back then.
Yeah, I mean, if the internet's from the '60s, I mean, come on.
Yeah, they just constantly upgrade the stuff, of course,
right.
But if they can get you to carry around something and track yourself, I guess that's better than having to have a whole apparatus to do it. And we'll just change over to this new system and
we'll give everybody a Schwitzgable prison tracking machine.
Yeah. Well, it's that was. Oh man, I never even did anything with that. See what I mean, man? It's like I need to post that and maybe do something that can accompany that. Yeah, because that's so freaking profound. It's ridiculous.
That's the point I made in my American Ultra analysis is that 90% of the people who are going to watch that movie from the conspiracy mindset are going to be thinking, oh, it's some MK Ultra assassins are everywhere, man. They're going to activate. They're going to put the trigger words out and activate their assassins. No. And it's actually in the movie that the point is that everyone is under MK Ultra programming because MK Ultra programming is about socially re-engineering and brainwashing the masses.
They actually communicate this in that film.
That's my interpretation of the film.
Yeah.
So this might be debatable, but the two characters that are the main, they represent the millennial / Generation Xers. And they are the complete mind-controlled people. The small town that they're in, this is small town America. This represents America. Mm-hmm. The whole town is completely controlled. That's the point of the movie. It's not some assassin with trigger words. That's not the point. The point is that the MK Ultra program was about mass control, right? I'm not saying that the CIA can whisper some trigger word and trigger any person anywhere at any time. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about toxic culture, the 60s culture, that revolutionized things. That was MK Ultra. That's what it's about, right? The Schwitzgebel machine comes out of these programs, at least from what I've read, if this is accurate. This comes out of Dr. Ewan Cameron's research. That's what it's really about. It's
what
about
pharmaceutical industry and everybody now is on drugs?
That's MK Ultra, not, Scarlett Johansson, secret assassin, getting a trigger word and alternate persona and blowing your brains out. That's not what it is.
That's pushing the alternative media, though, because
that's exactly.
They always jump on. Where they are on psychoactive drugs. Well, psychoactive drugs make you snap and turn into a crazed killer.
Yeah.
And why is that being continually pumped out there? That's kind of odd.
Now, was that a part of the project? Probably. I mean, I understand that. I get you guys' point on that, and I think you're basically correct that it's not about the secret courier assassin. I do think that probably was experimented with, and how far they took that, I don't know. But I don't think that's what happened with James Holmes or Cho Sung Wee or these so-called mass shooting things. Those things look to be staged events. But if I'm conveying what I'm trying to say clearly, I think you get my point. My point is that MK Ultra was a cultural revolution, ultimately.
Yeah, and I could maybe buy into the whole mind control triggered assassin thing if I could understand what the hell would be the need for it. Because
that's the thing. If
assassinate Castro?
Yeah, come on. But yeah, that's the thing is I don't doubt. I think they probably were experimenting with that, but you don't even need that. That's the point. Why would you need to go to that length and make it that risky and iffy? Because I mean, you don't. A lot of if the books are accurate, which they're probably controlled leaks about MK Ultra anyway, but from what we see in these books, a lot of times it would drive these people crazy in these different programs.
Yeah.
So you're not going to risk some big operation going foul due to your test subject being a basket case.
Yeah, having a break or something like that.
Yeah, you're just use the media and fake it.
Yeah, so much more plausible too, because that's the big barrier to a lot of people with that they create so much cognitive dissonance for people about believing that 9/11 was an inside job, so to speak. It's like, how do you get people in the FBI and firefighters and cops to go in on it and keep their mouth shut about 3,000 people being just slaughtered? That doesn't make any sense, and really, when you think about it, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It doesn't make a yeah.
And on top of that, there are plenty of people in the world who like to kill anyway. So why would you need a mind control patsy? Get somebody who likes to kill people.
Right. Yeah, why do you need a mind control patsy? Because what about Blackwater and mercenaries and... That's
what I'm saying, yeah, there's plenty of psychotic killers in the world.
Murders for hire, just all over the place. And then, if you're going to have an economy of prostitution, an economy of everything else, you could have an economy of hired killers, which we know exists. I mean, they even show that on these TV shows where they do these... I think it happens too, just... day to day, people trying to get their wives snuffed out or something, try to hire a killer.
Yeah, I've seen specials on that. Oh, now I don't know how accurate they are. They could be souped up, but I mean, it's a big world. That kind of stuff does go on. There are people that kill people. So yeah, I mean that's been going on for ages too. Would women want to get rid of their husbands to get the insurance money? All kinds of stuff like that.
So does it make a big difference to you, Jay, if you were to be taken out with a nanobot or with a 22 silencer? I mean, it's like. Well,
that was a good point you made in one of the talks too. To the paranoia crowd, that guy that called in that was obviously full of it. I mean,
hyper paranoia. Just
I mean,
over the top paranoia.
What's the point of even if it's that far down the road? I mean, it's over. What's the point of even worrying about it? You might as well just, go about your business. I mean,
I guess you'll just be going about your business, and then you'll be going about your business, but you really won't be going about your business.
If some guy in the NSA can just, push a few buttons, click his mouse, and control your actions and shut you down like a robot, I mean.
I know. It's,
what are you gonna take a bath in vinegar to kill all the nanobots? Well, they'll just spray them again. Right.
Well, I got some neodymium magnets now, and I just as a precautionary measure, I run them over my food and check it under a magnifying glass.
Check it under a black light like you would your sheets.
Or
for nano semen.
Or you run the magnet over your Big Mac, and then
you better run a Geiger counter over it too for the Fukushima radiation.
Fuck, all these sesame seeds are magnetic. I don't know what's going on. That's a great way to conceal a nanobot, man. Sesame seeds, look out. Then you got a bunch of people going around pulling sesame seeds off their paranoid fuckers, like pulling them off their hamburgers when they go. If that guy was to get any traction, you know what I mean. I don't know. This like stuff is too. It just goes. Well, I don't know. Like I said, it scares me about as bad as the nuke bomb scared me. I'll just put it that way. Well,
that's what I'm saying. The fear. Now, I do think nanotech is real, and I think that there's all kinds of stuff, crazy stuff out there in the world. But being fearful of something that you have absolutely no control over is completely irrational. And the point of that would be control. I mean, the fear is a big part of all of it. It's making you afraid of shit you can't control.
Right, like these targeted individuals. And see, now, the thing about that, you're familiar with targeted individuals and gang stalking and all that stuff.
Yeah, I get emails from them wanting me to do something. I'm like, number one, how am I supposed to believe you? Number two, what am I supposed to do? What is it you think I'm going to do?
That's the thing. What can you do? It's like if you're being gang stalked or clandestinely harassed, and what could you do? I mean, what would be the solution? I mean, you can't find who's doing it, and then I ask myself too. It's like, okay, what is the goal with that? Why do they see? Why
are they going to target just some random person who's living on the beach in a shack, in Florida or something? Somebody who's just watching YouTube videos. I mean, you don't matter that much. No offense, right? I mean,
yeah, but then I've thought about, because I've heard some stuff about. Whether this is true, I don't know, whatever, but it was interesting in light of the targeted individual thing was during the Cultural Revolution with Mao, they had really similar stuff going on. And they would recruit, like, the youth in their revolution to terrorize people that they wanted, to terrorize and get rid of and drive them out.
I think we see that with the social justice warriors. That's what they do. But they're not brave enough to actually do it in person. It's like online campaigns now.
Yeah. So the idea that there could be these people that are hired, and even I've read some stuff. I've read up about this a little bit, where it is also proposed that the people that can be recruited to engage in the gang stalking are just like some paid schlub, and they don't even really know what they're doing. Other than, okay, show up here and then drive around the block, and you're going to do that 4 times, and then you're going to get paid, $75, and then we'll give you a call when we need you again, and so you go drive around the block 4 times, and then okay, but what they don't know is there's 15 other people that are on the payroll too, and as soon as you leave, the other guy shows up. He drives around the block 10 times, and meanwhile, there's this poor guy in his apartment looking out the window saying, "What the fuck is going on?" You know, and it's like, and nobody's in on it except for the one guy that, and then the people that are conducting it. And then you get, what the hell reasoning could be behind that? And the only thing I could figure out is that it is to establish some sort of undercurrent of paranoia and fear that is an adjunct to the stuff that we're dealing with on these calls. That is, you know, another way to reorganize and restructure society by putting people who are genuinely, legitimately fucking paranoid as fuck. Because there's really shit happening to them that they don't know what the hell is going on. They don't know why they're being targeted, and it's seemingly totally random. And they're absolutely telling the truth. And they communicate this fear everywhere they go in their body language and everything else, because we know that, because you can influence people just by your demeanor and your body language. And you got, you know, these people that are kind of spotted about throughout a community, and they're kind of going around and spreading this fear, and it's also coordinated with all this crap that's coming through the tube. Does that make any sense?
Well, I think that's definitely possible. You know, there are situations, if we consider different theories and analyses of Sandy Hook, of created communities, experimental communities, UN communities. Those things are very real. I think you guys even did a show on a town that was basically a cop town, which is kind of strange.
Yeah, there's a video up there. In the Soviet Union, they had these spook towns. Everybody in the town's a spook. And then they would be an exact replica of an Middle American typical town with the same idea, everything down to the detail.
Yes, and in fact, in terms of the Americans and Mark's work with translating pieces on the illegal directorate, supposedly that's what they would do to train them, is create fictional U.S. Little fake town and have a car dealership and a little suburb neighborhood, and this is where the illegals are being trained, supposedly. So, you know, is this 100% accurate? I don't know. You know, it's portrayed in the TV series, The Illegals, about the Soviet spies, but you know, sounds plausible, sounds in line with what we're talking about. And we have to keep in mind that, yes, at one level, the Cold War dialectic is staged, it's managed dialectic. But at another level, you know, there really are these people that are engaging in these activities. So, you know, you could, as part of the overall larger experimentation and mind control techniques, especially in the Soviet administration, which was all about, I mean, that was actually a scientistic dictatorship. That's what it was about. So when you read the Soviet Party line for the USSR, they have actual dogmas for science. This is another way to look at how scientism can be dogma. The USSR was supposed to be a scientific dictatorship. This was Dawkins, you know, Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson in control, right?
Yeah.
That's
their wet dream.
That's it. That's their wet dream. And they would, Lysenko, it was called Lysenkoism for a while when he was in control of the party's scientific arm. He had all these dogmas about what you had to believe in terms of science. And then when they tried to implement these policies, you know, Lysenkoism in terms of agriculture resulted in the deaths of millions of people because it wasn't based on reality. It was based on the party's dogma. So when we think about that mindset, we could start to see how we could have experiments with entire fake suburbs, fake neighborhoods, train these people, send them over to the U.S., see if it works, see how they operate, what do they do, ultimately probably as a big social experiment.
Yeah, well, that's what the whole Cold War was a
big social experiment.
Big social experiment, and like we talked about before, how that constructed the whole spy culture apparatus. That was speculating that's at least in part being used on what we're seeing now at these hoaxed events, utilizing that framework that's already constructed. That never went away. Nothing from the Cold War era went away, because it was designed to be a springboard for future operations.
Yes.
In many respects, so that's how I see things. And we go through different phases of business plan. It's like if you go to work somewhere and it's like, what are they doing? Oh, they're dragging out all the copy machines. What's going on? Oh, they're bringing new ones in, huh? Okay. Just like that.
Or how if you've ever worked in a retail store, well, we got the new product design coming in, so we got to change out all the displays.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I think that's a really good analogy for descriptive of what just different phases that are going through, because and we could gather that from looking at these documents and these writings and stuff that nobody's supposed to read, where they're it's planned out ahead of time. Oh yeah, this and that and the other thing is going to happen, and we need to make contingencies for all that. It's like, so they're going to prepare to make all this huge terrorist fighting apparatus based on what may or may not happen regarding this terrorist threat that before this point in history really wasn't a thing.
Yeah, and if you look at Bamford's book, his 1982 or 3 book Puzzle Palace, he basically says everything that Snowden says in that back in 1982 or 3. So the idea that Snowden is this revolutionary leaker like Julian Assange, which is all old information.
Yeah.
Completely. He can't be, just like bin Laden, like the government can't get to him, but the Daily Show can go interview him in Russia. Come on.
Yeah. I'm pretty convinced that Snowden is a prototype computer-generated creation. Because, I don't know, you have to look at the stuff for yourself, but, let's do some, analysis of the footage of him. And, very...
Well, nothing would surprise me, but I don't think there's any question that it's a staged phenomenon. I mean, you don't get DreamWorks, interested in making a movie about you unless you're.
They're going to make a movie about him. DreamWorks is making a movie about Edward Snowden.
There was DreamWorks approached Assange. They were going to do Assange, and that didn't work out. So I forget what company made the Assange, Sony or something. Then DreamWorks was in talks for, I believe it was DreamWorks or Sony was in talks for the Snowden movie. Then it ended up being Sony or whoever made Citizen 4. I don't remember, but yeah, I mean, when DreamWorks is interested in you, you're pretty.
Yeah.
I feel certain that you're not a real whistleblower.
Oh, absolutely not. I never was really taken in by any of that.
Right.
Yeah, the WikiLeaks stuff and all that. Because everything that was coming out, I was like, yeah, so what? Yeah, so what? I mean, it's like talking about that for years.
WikiLeaks releases the war shooting, the drone shot image. That was already on the internet.
Oh, it already was pre-release. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
What does Snowden say? Well, there's this program called TAI or TAO, whatever, and it basically surveils everything you do online. No shit. Come on.
Yeah. Oh, man. Last time we were talking, you said to check out Dark Mirror. And
Black Mirror.
Black Mirror?
Yes.
And I watched a couple of episodes of it, and there's the one that remind me of the one.
Did you see the one of the black girl who's in the completely created fake city?
No, I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh, that's the best one. You got to watch that one. I think it's the 3rd episode of season 1, and it's this black girl who's British chick. She wakes up in this suburb neighborhood. She's walking around, and everyone's filming her, and she's asking, where am I? What's going on? She has amnesia or something, and she can't remember what's up. And everybody starts just eerily kind of walking and following her, and she bumps into all these people that are let loose that are convicts, and they're killing and maiming, and so she's running from these people. She meets up with some other rebels, and they run and they take down the signal that's supposedly putting everybody under mind control. And I'm going to go ahead and spoil it because it's too good not to spoil. You'll still want to watch.
Yeah, I don't care.
But so it turns out it was all fake, and she's actually it's a future dystopia where she's on trial for a murder, but she has no idea if she actually committed these murders or not. She's just told that she's guilty of these murders, and the terror scenario that she was living through was actually a theme park where in the future they take kids to watch so-called murderers and murder accomplices live out a continual cycle of amnesia where they wake up in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, that series. I watched, I think, 3 of them. Yeah, it's kind of like the new Twilight Zone, I guess.
It is exactly. It's Twilight Zone, but with a tech dystopia motif.
Yeah, I saw the one with the guy, the politician that has to screw a pig. That's kind of bizarre. That
It was, yeah. It was gross.
Yeah, kind of a gross out one. That one didn't really like all that much, except for there was some stuff in there that I thought was kind of interesting. So they upload the video, and they're talking about they tracked this guy. They're trying to track this guy, and they brought up we could do it by finding out how many videos were uploaded with a certain exact time duration. And it just reminded me of some other stuff I've known about through doing like some web development work and stuff like that. And every time you get on the internet, and I don't think most people are aware of that, it's a pretty. It's not much of a revelation I'm going to bring out here, but your browser and your operating system and all that are different, variables, right? And then when you may put a special plug-in and something like I don't know, whatever that lets you email a page from your, and you have to install that. So that's another a special configuration that, and all that can be taken together with your information about what display size you're using, and that's a specific signature for you.
Oh wow!
And so that is used to keep track of how many times you visit a site or stuff like that, or because that web development too, like one thing that we would run into is, it was just an issue of, when you're designing and you're doing a page layout or a web page layout, you have to kind of have a good idea of how many people are using a particular monitor size. Because you don't want, the majority of the people looking at the page to have half of the stuff off the page because their monitor resolution is, too low. That's not much of an issue now because everybody's got high-res monitors. But it used to be back in the day when I was employed doing that stuff. And so there was this always this kind of method for gleaning all that information, and that just reminded me of all that. So I guess the point I'm trying to get at is that this idea that you have anonymity on the internet is just has never been the case.
Right, and I'm not super schooled on this, but somebody told me one time too, and I don't know how exactly it works out, but you could probably enlighten me on it. The server hubs and the IP, the protocols, can't they all be tracked that way too?
Yeah, and you also have what's called a MAC address that is a specific identifier to your particular specific computer. Mm-hmm. And that is identified on a network. So that is your specific computer that it announces its MAC address on networks. And and of course that all can be triangulated to based on because everything is an electronic signal, and that has a measurable time delay where how long does it take? 'Cause you do that every time if you ever test the speed of your internet connection, you're pinging it off a server sitting somewhere, and it's timing how long it takes for it to get there and come back, and then it does a calculation and tells you, oh, that's how fast your internet is. Well, that time that the signals can go out and come back can be used to do anything like triangulate and pinpoint exactly where you're at. So this idea that somebody can anonymously post something to the internet or something like that, because that was kind of a central kind of plot flaw that was in that particular episode. It's that it's the idea that so these terrorists, and see that's how you're getting propagandized too. It's terrorists can anonymously stick shit on the internet, and there's no way to trace it. But no, there absolutely is. Yeah, and see, that's just stuff I know about, and it's like I don't know shit. So it's like there's probably even more sophisticated ways or more direct ways to do this.
Or the absurdity of ISIS having Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts, but they can't be tracked and caught. I mean, come on.
No, that's an absolute disinfo. So yeah, whenever you see that or hear about that, that's just pure disinfo. That's just not true.
So the one I'm thinking of with the completely fake city is White Bear, season 2, episode 2, or episode 5, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, that one is one that you would definitely want to watch because it's a completely created fictional city that she suddenly appears in, and suburb, I should say, and has no idea what's going on. Everything's controlled.
Yeah, I'll check that out. There was the other one on there that I watched with the guy who has the implant that records everybody. Well, it's in the future where everybody has an implant that records all their memories and they can play them back. That one.
Yeah, well,
I saw that one.
I think I'm going to have to wind down here. This has been a good talk, though.
Yeah, man, I sure appreciate it. And, what do you got going on that you want anything you want to put out there before you got to go here?
Not really anything other than what I mentioned at the beginning. Just be doing more of the same, more film analysis, more, philosophical, cultural analysis. So just check out jaysanalysis.com.
Great, cool, man. It was good talking with you, and hopefully we can do it again.
All right, cool.
Okay, so that's it for the afternoon commute. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you very much, Jay. That was an excellent call. I much appreciate it, man. Hopefully we'll do it again soon. And thank you very much to John. He had to drop out there. And check out hoaxbusterscall.com. See you next time. Bye.